Chapter 2056. The closer Lu Ming got to the source of the sound, the louder the battle cries became. Kill! 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 The battle cries pierced through the clouds. Lu Ming climbed up a mountain peak that was dead silent. He stood at the peak of the mountain and looked ahead. His pupils suddenly constricted. There was a huge ancient city in front of him. This ancient city was different from the ones he had seen before. The ancient cities he had seen before had almost collapsed, but this one was still intact. It was very majestic and huge. From afar, it looked like a giant beast lying there. Outside the ancient city, there was a black mass of figures. These figures were wearing iron armor and holding all kinds of weapons. These are not living beings. Lu Ming looked at these figures carefully. These figures were completely black, and their bodies under the armor seemed to be formed by energy. They were not living beings. Demonic spirits. Lu Ming muttered. These should be demonic spirits formed by the indestructible demonic thoughts of the demonic Tao experts after they died in battle. There were at least tens of thousands of demonic spirits. When they gathered together, they would occasionally let out battle cries that shook the heavens and earth. However, the demonic spirits had been lingering outside the ancient city. They did not leave or enter the ancient city. This ancient city is intact. I'm afraid there will be opportunities. Lu Ming thought. However, he had no intention of going in to explore. Not to mention whether there were dangers in the ancient city, the demonic spirits alone were not easy to deal with. After observing for a while, Lu Ming shook his head. He moved and left the place. This time, Lu Ming did not fly far before he saw a few rays of light flash and a few old men appeared not far away. They were the boundary emperors of the ancient demonic nation. Obviously, they were attracted by the battle cries. Lu Ming. The boundary emperors saw Lu Ming and smiled as they flew toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming, what's in front? Why are there such intense battle cries? It sounds like thousands of soldiers and horses. An elder asked. His face carried a gentle smile, and his expression was kind and amiable. It's an ancient city. There are at least tens of thousands of demonic spirits outside the ancient city. The battle cries are coming from the demonic spirits. Lu Ming replied. An ancient city. The eyes of the old men lit up. They had come here in search of opportunities because their lifespans were about to be exhausted. If they could not make a breakthrough, they would die sooner or later. They bitterly cultivated for more than 100,000 years, yet in the end, they turned to dust. They were unwilling to accept this and wanted to stake it all. When they heard that there was an ancient city, they were naturally moved. They speculated that the demonic sea was most likely formed by falling from the heavenly realm. It definitely contained a fortuitous encounter. Lu Ming, aren't you going to explore the ancient city? The kind-looking old man asked. I'm not going. Lu Ming shook his head. His main objective in entering the Devil's Sea was to obtain the ancient demonic coffin. As for opportunities and whatnot, he wasn't too interested in them. Then let's go in. The kind-looking old man smiled. There were 4 of them in total. They flew towards the ancient city and just happened to pass by Lu Ming. Just as the two sides clashed, a sword light suddenly blossomed from the kind-looking old man's hand and slashed towards Lu Ming's neck. The sword light tore through the void, bringing with it a terrifying whistling sound. It was incomparably sharp. At the same time, the other 3 quasi-emperors also made their moves. All sorts of terrifying attacks were aimed at Lu Ming's vital points. However, when the 4's attacks landed on Lu Ming's body, the primal chaos light burst out from Lu Ming's body and blocked all the attacks. Moreover, the primal chaos light trembled and a powerful force surged out. The 4 quasi-emperors' bodies trembled and they all retreated. You are all courting death. Lu Ming said coldly as his cold gaze swept across the 4. You have been guarding against us? The kind-looking old man said with an unsightly expression. Earlier, when they were so close to each other, their attacks were extremely fast. If Lu Ming hadn't been guarding against them, he wouldn't have been able to react in such a short time. Furthermore, he wouldn't have been able to defend and counterattack. The only explanation was that Lu Ming had been guarding against them and had already prepared his defenses. The Blue Demon King, that old fellow, has been showing killing intent towards me along the way. Moreover, I have heard that he has great authority in the ancient devil nation. If he wants to order people around, many people would be willing to be his lackeys. Naturally, I have to guard against him. Lu Ming said indifferently. It could be said that among the people who entered the Devil's Sea this time, Lu Ming was wary of everyone except the ancient great emperor. That old fellow, the Blue Demon King, had lost face because of Lu Ming previously. Clearly, he harbored a grudge against him and had always wanted to kill him. With the Blue Demon King's authority, it was normal for him to bribe some people to kill Lu Ming. Let's go. The kind-looking old man roared and turned to run. They were all too clear about Lu Ming's combat strength. He wasn't someone they could fight against. Since their sneak attack failed, they could only run. Do you think you can escape? Kill. Lu Ming was the first to chase after the kind-looking old man. His speed was astonishing. In just a few breaths, he had caught up with the kind-looking old man. The kind-looking old man was almost scared to death. He roared, "Lu Ming, you can't kill me. This is the ancient devil nation. If you kill me, you will die too. You still dare to threaten me at this time? What a joke. Kill." Lu Ming shouted coldly. He was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. He pointed his finger and an extremely condensed finger force burst out. Although the kind-looking old man tried his best to resist, it was useless. The finger force directly pierced through his forehead and destroyed his soul. Whoosh! After killing the old man, Lu Ming didn't stop and chased after the other three. Split up and run. One of them roared. The three of them ran in three different directions. However, Lu Ming caught up with one of them and killed him in one move. Then, Lu Ming chased after the third person. "No, spare my life," the quasi-emperor yelled. However, Lu Ming was indifferent. He had to kill these people. "How dare you? You are courting death." At this moment, an angry roar was heard. In the distance, a terrifying demonic light slashed toward Lu Ming at an astonishing speed. Before the voice died away, the demonic light was already about to slash Lu Ming. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed and he felt a sense of danger. At this moment, he burst out with all his strength. The light of primal chaos surrounded his body. He controlled two types of laws and executed his strongest move, the Annihilation Chaos Finger of Calamity. Boom! A gray chaos finger of calamity pointed at the beam of demonic light, and a shocking rumble erupted. The demonic light buzzed and was eventually blocked by Lu Ming. However, the chaos finger of calamity was also slashed apart by the demonic light. Lu Ming felt an extremely powerful force surging toward him. He couldn't help but retreat a few thousand meters. He felt the blood in his body churning. What a terrifying force. Lu Ming was shocked. It was definitely a martial emperor. Whoosh! There was a flash of light in front and a black-robed middle-aged man appeared. This person exuded a terrifying aura. It was an emperor's aura. This person is definitely not a one-star void emperor. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. Chapter 2057. The black-robed middle-aged man looked coldly at Lu Ming and said, "Lu Ming, the great emperor has treated you well. He even brought you here to look for the ancient demonic coffin. Who would have thought that you would secretly kill the experts of the devil nation? You are heartless. You deserve to die. What a joke. You don't have to be so righteous if you want to kill me. You must have been sent by the Blue Demon King to kill me. You are just a lackey." Lu Ming sneered. At the same time, he was thinking of a way to escape. Die. The black-robed middle-aged man did not say anything else. He immediately attacked. The power of the heavens burst forth and turned into a saber light, slashing towards Lu Ming at an extremely fast speed. 2-star illusionary emperor. Lu Ming judged that this person should be a 2-star illusionary emperor. He was stronger than a 1-star illusionary emperor but not ridiculously strong. However, a 2-star illusionary emperor was not someone that Lu Ming could withstand. Swoosh! Lu Ming turned and left. He turned into a beam of light and flew towards the ancient city. If he wanted to shake off the black-robed middle-aged man, he could only rely on the ancient city. Trying to leave? No way. The black-robed middle-aged man shouted coldly. He turned into a beam of black light and chased after Lu Ming. At the same time, he slashed out a beam of black demonic light. Lu Ming's body glowed. Dozens of absolute sacred weapons and 2 emperor weapons floated out. The dozens of weapons gathered together. The combat weapon chi gathered and formed a huge defensive weapon. At the same time, the law of primal chaos and the light of primal chaos were added to the combat weapon. Lu Ming did not care and moved forward rapidly. Clang! The black-robed middle-aged man's demonic light slashed at the combat weapon behind Lu Ming. The combat weapon shook and the dozens of weapons were almost shattered. If it were not for the 2 emperor weapons, the combat weapon chi, and the light of primal chaos and the law of primal chaos, an ordinary absolute sacred weapon would have been shattered by this attack. The terrifying power kept surging toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming felt his blood and chi churning and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. However, he still managed to block it in the end. Furthermore, that power became his driving force, allowing him to fly forward even faster. The black-robed middle-aged man's face turned cold. Lu Ming's strength was truly terrifying. Even with the combat strength of a 2-star empty emperor, he was actually blocked. However, when he thought of the reward that the Blue Demon King had promised, his heart burned with passion, and he quickly chased after Lu Ming. Kill! In front of the ancient city, there were tens of thousands of demonic spirits. They were a black mass, wearing armor and holding weapons. Their battle cries shook the sky. Lu Ming quickly approached the ancient city. Clang! At this time, the black-robed middle-aged man launched another attack. A devilish light slashed at the battle weapon behind Lu Ming, causing it to shake violently. This time, Lu Ming spat out a mouthful of blood. With his current combat strength, he could still contend against an ordinary 1-star empty emperor. However, the gap between him and a 2-star empty emperor was too great. Lu Ming gritted his teeth and endured, rushing headlong into the dark mass of devil spirits. Kill! Some devil spirits discovered Lu Ming, and their murderous intent swept towards Lu Ming. At the same time, all kinds of weapons were launched towards Lu Ming. Its equivalent to the Great Saint Realm. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat, and he judged the strength of the devil spirit that attacked him. Therefore, he did not stop at all. With the light of chaos protecting his body, he directly rushed over. Bang! Bang! The demonic spirit that attacked Lu Ming directly exploded into pieces. In an instant, Lu Ming rushed a few hundred meters forward. However, immediately, more devil spirits charged towards Lu Ming. Moreover, their combat strength was stronger than before, reaching the absolute saint realm. Lu Ming ignored them and continued to rush forward. Behind him, the black-robed middle-aged man stopped. He did not dare to rush over rashly like Lu Ming. He just wanted to observe for a while. Behind him, there was the sound of air being torn apart, and more than 10 figures rushed over. They were all old men of the Boundary Emperor realm. Obviously, most of them had rushed over from behind. Just the few of you? The black-robed middle-aged man looked around and said coldly. The 2 martial emperors will be here soon. A white-haired old man said. Yes. This time, the Azure Demon King has entrusted us with the task of killing Lu Ming. We must not make any mistakes. One of you will stay here and wait for the other martial emperors to arrive. The rest of you follow me and prepare to charge into this ancient city. The black-robed middle-aged man ordered. At this moment, Lu Ming had rushed all the way and was already halfway through the journey. Although there were many devil spirits, they were too scattered. Moreover, there were not many experts in the first section. The strongest was only a perfected absolute saint. They could not stop Lu Ming at all. However, the closer they got to the ancient city, the stronger the devil spirits became. Whoosh! Whoosh! Several rusty iron swords slashed at Lu Ming. The swords whistled, wanting to tear Lu Ming apart. This attack had the offensive strength of a boundary emperor. Lu Ming did not dare to be careless. He punched out, and the image of the suppressing prison steel appeared and smashed forward. Bang! Bang! The suppressing prison steel knocked away a few devil spirits, turning them into ashes in midair. The suppressing prison heavenly art is indeed effective against these devil spirits. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He continuously punched out with both fists, knocking away the boundary emperor realm devil spirits one by one. Even when facing the boundary emperor devil spirits, Lu Ming did not slow down. He quickly approached the ancient city. The black-robed middle-aged man finally could not hold back. He roared, "Charge with me!" Whoosh! Whoosh! The black-robed middle-aged man took the lead and charged out. 10 odd boundary emperors followed him like a long spear, stabbing at the devil spirit army. Only one boundary emperor remained to receive the others. After all, the black-robed middle-aged man was a 2-star foe emperor. He led the 10 odd boundary emperors and pierced through the devil spirit army like a long spear, quickly chasing after Lu Ming. Ordinary devil spirits could not stop them at all. When the black-robed middle-aged man was halfway through, Lu Ming was already about to break through the devil spirit's defense. However, at this moment, Lu Ming ran into trouble. There were 2 terrifying devil spirits attacking Lu Ming. These 2 devil spirits were wearing rusty armor. One held a sword and the other a long spear. Their strength was extremely shocking. These 2 devil spirits were equivalent to 1-star foe emperors. The iron sword and long spear attacked Lu Ming. In an instant, they scattered Lu Ming's suppressing prison steel and blocked Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming's heart sank slightly. Indeed, there were martial emperors in the devil spirit army. Fortunately, they were not too terrifying. The 2 devil spirits were only equivalent to 1-star foe emperors. Lu Ming is blocked. Charge over. The black-robed middle-aged man's eyes lit up. He charged at Lu Ming at an even faster speed. With the 2 devil spirits blocking Lu Ming and him, Lu Ming would definitely die. Suppressing prison steel. At this moment, Lu Ming's mind stirred. The suppressing prison steel floated out and rapidly grew in size. It emitted a bright light and suppressed the 2 devil spirits. Boom! Boom! The suppressing prison steel's bloodline restrained the devil spirits even more. The bodies of the 2 devil spirits were directly sent flying by the suppressing prison steel. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lu Ming's figure flashed and charged through the encirclement of the devil spirit army, rushing toward the ancient city. The strange thing was that when Lu Ming approached the ancient city, the devil spirits stopped in their tracks and did not chase after Lu Ming. Chapter 2058. The ancient city's gates were open. However, the light in the city seemed very dim. Looking from the outside, the buildings in the city looked hazy, unable to be seen clearly. Boom! Boom! Behind, the black-robed, middle-aged man continuously sent the demonic spirits flying as he gave chase. Lu Ming did not stop, directly charging into the ancient city. However, the moment Lu Ming charged into the ancient city, his expression changed. This was because he could not fly in the ancient city. The ancient city forbade flying. There was a mysterious power that prevented him from flying. Furthermore, the light in the city was indeed very dim. Visibility was not high. Even with Lu Ming's eyesight, he could not see far. There were many huge palaces and all sorts of ancient buildings in the city. They were tall and majestic, like huge monsters standing tall in the ancient city. Lu Ming directly charged into a small alley, running wildly in it. Then, he turned into another small alley. There were countless streets and alleys in the ancient city. After a few turns, Lu Ming was already far away from the city gates. Just at this moment, the black-robed, middle-aged man led his men into the ancient city. The moment they entered the ancient city, their expressions changed as well. They felt that they could not fly. There might be fortuitous encounters in this ancient city. Let's search for that brat Lu Ming while searching for fortuitous encounters. A look of greed flashed in the black-robed, middle-aged man's eyes. Following that, he got two quasi-emperors to stand guard near the city gates. If they discovered Lu Ming, they were to report immediately. Then, he led the remaining quasi-emperors down a random street and ran. Just at this moment, two more people arrived outside the ancient city. These two old men had exceptionally strong auras. They were clearly faux emperor experts. After the quasi-emperor who stayed outside to provide support gave a simple explanation of the situation, the two faux emperors charged into the ancient city as well. Although there were martial emperor demonic spirits among the demonic spirits, the two were focused on charging in, not fighting. The faux emperor demonic spirits could not stop them. After fighting for a while, they charged into the ancient city as well. Lu Ming wandered around the ancient city, circling around many strange ancient buildings. The city was eerily quiet. It was empty, without any signs of life. What is in these buildings? Lu Ming was curious. He rushed to the wall of a building and looked inside. The interior of the building was similarly empty. There was nothing inside. This was an empty city. Lu Ming looked at a few buildings in a row. They were all empty. Suddenly, Lu Ming's eyes flickered, because he saw the door of a palace in front of him, which was slightly ajar. The doors of the other buildings were all closed, except for this palace. Could it have been opened by the ancient devil nation? Lu Ming pondered. Those from the ancient devil nation must have entered as well, so it wasn't surprising that they were the ones who opened the door. Lu Ming retracted his aura, approached the door, and looked inside. With a glance, his pupils suddenly constricted. Inside the palace was a small courtyard. In the courtyard, there was a figure. That figure was seated cross-legged. It was wearing armor. However, within the armor was a skeleton. The armor was rusty and stained with dark red blood. It seemed that it was an ancient person who had died a long time ago. Lu Ming observed for a while, then left the place and continued to walk through the ancient city. He wondered if he should return to the city gate and leave this ancient city. For some reason, he had a bad feeling in his heart. He felt that this ancient city was very strange. After a while, a figure flashed at the entrance of the street in front of him. 7 to 8 figures appeared. It was the black-robed middle-aged man and the quasi-emperors. They also saw Lu Ming at a glance. Lu Ming, where are you going now? The black-robed middle-aged man said coldly and chased after Lu Ming. Lu Ming turned and ran toward another street. The black-robed middle-aged man chased after him. They had explored a few ancient buildings in a row, but they didn't find anything. There was no opportunity at all, so Lu Ming couldn't let it go. At the very least, if they killed Lu Ming, they could still obtain a generous reward from the Blue Demon King. Soon, Lu Ming turned 2 streets. However, at this moment, 2 more figures appeared in front of him. When Lu Ming saw these 2 people, his expression changed. These 2 people's auras were extremely terrifying. They were also martial emperors. Lu Ming. When the 2 saw Lu Ming, murderous intent flashed in their eyes. Then, they charged at Lu Ming. Haha. Stop Lu Ming. The black-robed middle-aged man guffawed. Lu Ming's expression turned sullen. It looked like the Blue Demon King really wanted to kill him. He actually worked with so many people in secret. Naturally, Lu Ming could not stop and fight with the other party. The other party had 3 Void Emperors. If he got entangled, he would die for sure. Lu Ming's figure changed, and he charged down another street on the right. Ah! Just at this moment, a miserable shriek rang out in the silent ancient city, sounding extremely mournful. Lu Ming turned around and took a quick glance. Immediately, he felt a chill run down his spine. Xiao Chen saw that one of the quasi-emperors chasing him had fallen behind. At this moment, that quasi-emperor was completely encased in armor. That armor was mottled with rust and had pitch-black bloodstains on it. At this moment, the armor encased that quasi-emperor. That quasi-emperor's body quickly shriveled up as if the armor had drained all his essence blood. What the hell is this? Scram! The black-robed middle-aged man shouted angrily. He swung his hand, and a pitch-black demonic saber struck the armor. Clang! A melodious sound rang out as the demonic saber struck the armor. However, there was not a single mark on the armor. As for that quasi-emperor, he had already stopped screaming and turned into a withered skeleton. Attack together! The black-robed middle-aged man was enraged. He launched all sorts of attacks at the armor. However, the armor flickered and charged into a building. By the time the black-robed middle-aged man rushed into the building, there was no trace of the armor. The black-robed middle-aged man and the others showed somewhat sullen expressions. Continue chasing Lu Ming. The black-robed middle-aged man shouted angrily. The black-robed middle-aged burly man bellowed angrily. They continued to chase after Lu Ming. However, not long after, another miserable scream rang out. That armor came out of nowhere and entangled another quasi-emperor. The black-robed middle-aged man and the others launched a torrential barrage of attacks. When the various attacks landed on the armor gave off clanging sounds. In the end, it charged into another building with a flash. The armor ate people. Everyone's hair stood on end. What was going on? It was just a piece of armor. To think that it repeatedly charged out and consumed a quasi-emperor's essence blood. A quasi-emperor could not resist at all. This was too horrifying. The remaining quasi-emperors paled somewhat. The quasi-emperor should walk in the middle. The 3 of us will guard the periphery. The black-robed middle-aged man said. Then, he got the quasi-emperor to walk in the middle and the 3 faux emperors to guard the periphery. Not far away, Lu Ming also heard the miserable scream and felt somewhat scared. To think that a piece of armor actually ate people. Most importantly, Lu Ming felt that this armor was very familiar. It was exactly the same as the armor on a corpse that he had seen in a courtyard previously. Chapter 2059. Lu Ming was running when all of a sudden, his hair stood on end. He felt a sense of impending danger. He turned around abruptly and pointed behind him. Chi! The finger force of the chaotic calamity finger shot out and struck a piece of armor. Clang! That armor shook a little, but nothing happened to it. It did not leave any traces behind. It swayed a little in the air and pounced toward Lu Ming at an alarming speed. Swoosh! Swoosh! Lu Ming continued to attack the armor with the chaotic calamity finger, but it was useless. The armor only shook a few times and continued to charge at Lu Ming. Lu Ming saw that there was blood flowing on the armor. They were like tentacles that stretched toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming used the law of chaos and the chaotic light to resist. But when the tentacles came into contact with the law of chaos and the chaotic light, the law of chaos and the chaotic light shook violently. In a breath's time, the tentacles tore them apart. Lu Ming retreated quickly and his hair stood on end. This armor was extremely terrifying. Even the chaotic light could not block it. Prison suppression. Lu Ming's heart moved. The prison suppression steel bloodline appeared behind him and emitted a bright light that suppressed the armor. Chi chi chi, the blood-red tentacles on the armor made a sizzling sound when they came into contact with the energy of the prison suppression steel. It was like ice being thrown into a fire and quickly melted. Those blood-red tentacles stretched back, and the armor disappeared in a flash. That was close. Lu Ming put away the prison suppression steel and let out a long breath. That armor was extremely evil. It seemed to have a spirit and was indestructible. It was very terrifying. Lu Ming is over there. Not far away, there was a loud roar. The black-robed middle-aged man and the others chased after Lu Ming. Obviously, Lu Ming had used the prison suppression steel. The light was too strong and they had discovered him. They really don't give up. Lu Ming's eyes flashed as he rushed in a certain direction. Not long after, Lu Ming arrived in front of a palace. The door of this palace was ajar. Lu Ming retracted his aura to the extreme, approached the door, and looked inside. Previously, there was a skeleton in the courtyard. That skeleton was wearing armor. Now, there was another skeleton. However, the armor it wore was gone. It really is this armor, Lu Ming murmured. After which, the purgatory-suppressing monument floated above his head. Lu Ming then rushed towards the skeleton. Without any abnormalities, Lu Ming arrived at Dry Bone's side. Whoosh! At this time, the door flashed, and the armor appeared. It twisted in a very human-like way, as if it was very nervous. Don't come over. Otherwise, I'll destroy this skeleton. Lu Ming condensed a big hand with his sacred power and grabbed the skeleton in his hand. As expected, the armor stopped, not daring to approach. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. It seemed that his guess was right. The armor and the skeleton were one. In other words, the owner of the armor was the skeleton. Perhaps the skeleton was very powerful when it was alive. After its death, the powerful energy nourished the armor, causing the armor to develop spiritual intelligence. However, the armor was still under the control of the skeleton. As long as the skeleton was destroyed, the armor would also be affected. Back off. Lu Ming said coldly. The armor twisted a few times, but in the end, it retreated. Lu Ming revealed a smile and said, "Follow behind me. It's best that you don't mess around. I can destroy this skeleton with just a thought." After saying that, Lu Ming left the courtyard and headed in a certain direction. The armor could only obediently follow behind Lu Ming. Come. Lu Ming sneered. The purgatory-suppressing monument rapidly enlarged, emitting a dazzling light that could be seen from afar. Then, Shao Chen put away the purgatory-suppressing monument and got the armor to hide in a building. Then, he waited quietly. Shao Chen did not have to wait for long before a figure flashed in front. The black-robed, middle-aged man quickly arrived with a group of people. However, the other two martial emperors were nowhere to be seen. Lu Ming smiled and looked behind him. Two figures quickly rushed over from behind. They were the two martial emperors chasing after Shao Chen. Clearly, the other party feared that Lu Ming would run away, so they attacked him from two sides. Two one-star foe emperors. Lu Ming revealed a cold smile as he stood there without moving. Whoosh! Whoosh! The black-robed, middle-aged man's figure flashed, and he led 7 or 8 quasi-emperors and the 2 foe emperors to surround Lu Ming. It looks like that old fellow Blue Demon King really spent a lot of money to kill me. Lu Ming smiled faintly. Lu Ming, although you are a genius, you do not know how to conduct yourself. You even dared to offend the Blue Demon King. Only death awaits you. The black-robed, middle-aged man said coldly. Lu Ming was rendered speechless. Speaking of which, from the start to the end, Shao Chen had not taken the initiative to provoke the Blue Demon King. It was the other party who had been targeting him. First, Lu Ming did not let Shao Chen participate in the competition. Then, Lu Ming defeated the ancient demon, slapping Shao Chen's face. Was that not what Shao Chen asked for? Such people could only be described as narrow-minded. If you want to kill me, be careful not to lose your insignificant lives here. Lu Ming smiled coldly. Boom. Lu Ming moved, executing the destruction primal chaos tribulation finger. He pointed at the black-robed, middle-aged man. You overestimate yourself. The black-robed, middle-aged man also moved. His palm was like a saber as he chopped down. A demonic saber light chopped at Lu Ming. Boom. The destruction primal chaos tribulation finger could not resist for long before it shattered. Lu Ming quickly retreated. However, at this moment, that armor charged out of a building and entangled a quasi-emperor. That quasi-emperor let out a miserable shriek as his body rapidly shriveled. Kill Lu Ming first. The black-robed, middle-aged man roared as he charged at Lu Ming. Whoosh. Lu Ming directly charged into a hall at the side. The black-robed, middle-aged man and two other martial emperors also charged into the hall, chasing after Lu Ming. Of course, the quasi-emperors were included as well. The hall was very large, but it was empty. There were no signs of life at all. Lu Ming rushed into the hall and dashed toward the depths of the hall. Ah! Behind him, another miserable shriek rang out. After the armor devoured a quasi-emperor, it entangled another quasi-emperor. Moreover, as the armor devoured quasi-emperors, it seemed to become stronger. At first, it needed a few breaths to devour a quasi-emperor. Now, it only needed one breath. Damn it! The black-robed, middle-aged man roared. If this continued, all the quasi-emperors would be devoured. The two of you continue chasing. I will block that armor. The black-robed, middle-aged man roared as he turned around and charged at that armor. By the time he arrived, another quasi-emperor had been devoured by the armor. In just a short while, the armor had already devoured 3 quasi-emperors and killed them. Enraged, the black-robed, middle-aged man sent out a move with his full strength. However, the armor did not attack him at all. It flickered a few times and directly fled. The remaining 5 quasi-emperors paled, their faces drained of blood. Now, follow me closely. Chapter 2060. The black-robed middle-aged man led the remaining 5 boundary emperors and chased after Lu Ming. At this moment, Lu Ming and the 2 void emperors had already rushed out of the palace and were quite a distance away. Lu Ming, prepare to die. We'll give you a quick death. You've offended the Blue Demon King. Your fate is already sealed. The 2 void emperors constantly shouted coldly, provoking Lu Ming. Lu Ming could not be bothered with him. He wandered around the winding streets. After running for a while, Lu Ming suddenly stopped and sneered, "You want to kill me? Come on." Bam! Bam! Lu Ming took a few steps and charged towards the 2 void emperors. The 2 void emperors were stunned. They did not understand why Lu Ming suddenly stopped running. However, Lu Ming stopping was exactly what they wanted. Kill! The 2 void emperors charged towards Lu Ming. However, at this moment, the armor rushed out from a building at the side and pounced towards one of the void emperors. The void emperor was shocked and quickly changed the direction of his attack towards the armor. However, the armor was sturdy and indestructible. It only shook slightly and continued to charge towards the void emperor. Tentacles appeared on the armor and wrapped around the opponent. Primal Chaos Calamity Finger. Lu Ming used the Primal Chaos Calamity Finger with all his strength and charged towards the other void emperor. With Lu Ming's current strength, the void emperor did not dare to be careless. He also used all his strength to attack Lu Ming. Bam! Bam! Lu Ming and the Void Emperor exchanged 2 moves. Although Lu Ming was at a disadvantage, he managed to block them. Lu Ming had fought the Void Emperor of the He clan before. However, the Void Emperor of the He clan had just broken through to the 1-star Void Emperor. His strength was not as strong as the person in front of him, but it was not much weaker. Although Lu Ming was not a match for him, he was still a threat to the other party. Lu Ming's back glowed as his third bloodline appeared. Lu Ming had borrowed part of his third bloodline's power. However, Lu Ming was very careful and did not dare to borrow too much. He only borrowed the portion that he could control. Even so, Lu Ming's strength had greatly increased. Whoosh whoosh. Lu Ming continued to unleash chaotic tribulation finger. After borrowing the power of his third bloodline, Lu Ming's power had greatly increased. Finally, he was able to fight his opponent head-on and not be at a disadvantage. Lu Ming entangled one of them, but the other Void Emperor was in danger. After devouring a few quasi-emperors, the armor's might had indeed increased greatly. That armor was very terrifying to begin with. Even Lu Ming's light of primal chaos could not block it. But now, the armor's power had increased greatly. Coupled with Lu Ming's threat, it could unleash even more terrifying power. The quasi-emperor's attacks continued to bombard the armor, but it was useless. The armor kept getting closer to the quasi-emperor. The blood-red tentacles extended towards the quasi-emperor and directly broke his defense. The blood-red tentacles wrapped around the quasi-emperor and began to devour him. Get lost! The quasi-emperor roared in horror as he struggled with all his might. However, it was useless. The armor wrapped tighter around him like an octopus and began to devour him. Ah! Save me! Save me! The quasi-emperor screamed in agony as he frantically twisted his body. However, it was all in vain. He felt that everything in his body was being devoured by the armor. His body was rapidly shriveling. The other quasi-emperor was horrified and wanted to save him, but he was firmly entangled by Lu Ming. At this moment, the black-robed middle-aged man finally arrived with his men. However, when he arrived, the quasi-emperor who was entangled by the armor was already beyond saving. His body had completely shriveled up and turned into a skeleton. The essence, qi, and spirit in his body had disappeared without a trace. A layer of bright red light spread out from the armor as if there was blood surging on it. Swoosh! The armor moved and charged towards the quasi-emperor who was fighting with Lu Ming. Get lost! The quasi-emperor exploded with an attack, wanting to blast open the armor and escape. However, Lu Ming would not give him the chance. He pointed a finger at the quasi-emperor's chest, causing the quasi-emperor to vomit blood and be severely injured. The armor wrapped around the quasi-emperor and its tentacles wrapped around him and began to devour him. Help! The quasi-emperor screamed in horror. The black-robed middle-aged man who was chasing after the quasi-emperor turned pale and revealed a terrified expression. If a one-star quasi-emperor could not resist, then a two-star quasi-emperor like him would be in danger. Let's go. The black-robed middle-aged man did not hesitate and turned to leave. This ancient city was too strange. If he stayed any longer, he might not even be able to keep his life. The 5 quasi-emperors followed the black-robed middle-aged man and rushed towards the city's gate. They did not want to stay in this ancient city for a moment longer. The quasi-emperor who was entangled by the armor let out a desperate roar. Not long after, he was devoured by the armor and turned into a skeleton. After devouring 2 quasi-emperors in a row, the armor emitted a dazzling blood-red light. It was incomparably horrifying. The armor seemed to be staring at Lu Ming and circling around Lu Ming. Lu Ming did not dare to be careless. The prison-suppressing steel floated in the air. At the same time, he grabbed the skeleton and stared at the armor. The armor flew a few rounds, as if it was still afraid that Lu Ming would destroy the skeleton. Moreover, it was also very afraid of the prison-suppressing steel. In the end, it retreated a little and kept a distance from Lu Ming. Chase! Lu Ming whispered and chased after the black-robed middle-aged man and the others. The armor followed behind him. However, when Lu Ming rushed to the ancient city's gate, he found that the black-robed middle-aged man and the others had already rushed out of the city and into the demonic spirit army. They were breaking out of the encirclement. Whoosh! Lu Ming also rushed out of the city. However, the armor remained in the city. It seemed like it could not leave the city. No matter how Lu Ming threatened it, it was useless. Lu Ming sighed in regret. He could only return to the city. Soon, the black-robed middle-aged man broke out of the encirclement of the demonic spirits. However, he did not go far. Instead, he stood guard there. The black-robed middle-aged man showed an extremely unsightly expression. This time, the losses were disastrous. After entering the ancient city, not only did 4 quasi-emperors die, but 2 faux emperors also died. Faux emperors were not people that quasi-emperors could compare to. They were already martial emperors. Only 1 out of 100 quasi-emperors could break through to martial emperor. Send a message to the Blue Demon King. We will wait here. That armor seems to be unable to come out. The black-robed middle-aged man said coldly. Without that armor, Lu Ming did not care about it at all. Lu Ming observed the city for a while. When he discovered that the black-robed middle-aged man stood guard outside the city, he could not help frowning. That black-robed middle-aged man was a 2-star faux emperor. Even if Shao Chen borrowed the power of his 3rd bloodline, he would not be able to charge out. Let's take a look at this ancient city first. See if there are any other powers that we can borrow. Perhaps there are other city gates that lead outside. Lu Ming thought for a while. Then, he turned around and headed into the ancient city. This ancient city was too big. It was vast and boundless. Furthermore, there was a restricted airspace, preventing flight. Traveling like this would take a lot of time. Lu Ming searched 10-odd buildings in the city but did not discover anything. There were also no other strange places. Chapter 2061. To Lu Ming's disappointment, he came to the left and right sides of the ancient city but did not see any city gates. There were only tall and majestic city walls. Moreover, there seemed to be a force on the city walls that prevented him from going up. In other words, it was impossible to leave through the walls. This ancient city can't only have 1 city gate, right? Lu Ming was speechless. Normally, a big city would not only have 1 city gate. Even if there were fewer, there would at least be 2. Normally, there would be 4, 8, or even more. Perhaps, in the depths of the ancient city, there will be a city gate in the direction opposite to the city gate. Lu Ming pondered and decided to enter the depths of the ancient city and pass through it. Just as Lu Ming was about to leave and enter the depths of the ancient city, a few more figures arrived outside the ancient city. One of them had 8 people, 4 of whom were martial emperors. The leading old man was the Blue Demon King. The Blue Demon King had a lot of power in the ancient Devil Kingdom. He was of the same generation as the ancient Great Emperor. His cultivation had reached the peak of the true Emperor realm and he was highly regarded by the ancient Great Emperor. Therefore, many people in the ancient Devil Kingdom would give him face. Moreover, the Blue Demon King had promised a generous reward for killing Lu Ming. Naturally, many people would follow the Blue Demon King to kill Lu Ming. What's going on? The Blue Demon King arrived and glanced coldly at the black-robed middle-aged man. It's like this, the black-robed middle-aged man explained the situation in the ancient city in a trembling voice. A piece of armor? The Azure Demon King's eyes flashed, followed by a cold murderous intent. They had lost so many experts because of Lu Ming. Lu Ming deserved to die. Those above Martial Emperor, follow me. The rest stay outside. The Blue Demon King ordered and flew into the ancient city. The Blue Demon King was a peak true Emperor realm expert. He was too strong. The devil spirits were like ants in front of the Blue Demon King. With a single slap, a large number of devil spirits were destroyed. They easily charged through the devil spirit army and rushed into the ancient city. 2 people in a group. Split up and look for Lu Ming. If you find him, inform us immediately. The Blue Demon King said. The people following the Blue Demon King this time were not to be underestimated. There were 3 of them, 1 true emperor and 2 void emperors. All of them were 5-star void emperors and above, much stronger than the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man followed the true emperor to the right. At this moment, Lu Ming had already passed through the center of the ancient city and was heading toward the depths. Compared to the direction of the city gate, this was indeed the depths of the ancient city. When Lu Ming arrived at the depths of the ancient city, he felt his hair stand on end. He felt a sense of danger. The buildings here are even more majestic. They look like small castles. Lu Ming looked around. The buildings here were indeed more majestic. They were pitch black and filled with the aura of time. Lu Ming moved forward cautiously. Behind him, the armor continued to follow him. Dong! Suddenly, a building in front of him shook. Lu Ming was startled and stopped. Dong! Then, the building shook again. It was as if a giant beast was attacking the castle from inside the building. After a few more tremors, the sound disappeared. Lu Ming frowned. He used his divine breath technique to restrain his aura to the extreme and continued forward. Roar! When Lu Ming passed by the building, an explosive roar came from the building. Then, the sound of iron chains colliding could be heard. In the next moment, Lu Ming saw a claw reaching out from the building. This claw was like a beast's claw. It was covered in black scales and wrapped around the claw were black chains. The claw was as big as a house. It grabbed at Lu Ming and emitted a terrifying aura. Lu Ming was shocked and quickly retreated. However, that hand claw actually expanded rapidly, becoming longer and bigger at an extremely fast speed. It grabbed toward Lu Ming at an alarming speed. Lu Ming was about to be grabbed. At this moment, Lu Ming controlled the prison-suppressing steel. The prison-suppressing steel shone and blasted at the claw. Chi chi chi, the claw was enveloped by the light of the prison-suppressing steel. It let out a sizzling sound and black smoke spread out. Roar! Another loud roar came from the building. The claw reached back. Lu Ming kept retreating. After retreating a distance, he let out a long breath. There were living creatures in the building. It looked like they were locked up. This shocked Lu Ming. This ancient city looked like it had been here for countless years. Why were there still living creatures? Could it be that the living creatures in the building were locked up by the original owner of this ancient city? However, to be able to survive for so long, it must be extremely powerful. Let's change directions. Lu Ming left the place and walked to the right for a while before continuing forward. In front of him, there were still many huge buildings. Lu Ming carefully passed through some buildings but did not find anything unusual. It seemed that not every building had living creatures. Even if there were, they might have died after so many years. Not many could survive. However, Lu Ming's good luck did not last for long. Roar! With a roar, a claw reached out from one of the buildings. This claw was bigger than the previous one. It was covered in black scales and its nails were very long, like the claws of a demon. Lu Ming blocked it with the prison-suppressing steel and retreated quickly. Fortunately, the prison-suppressing steel had a strong restraining effect on this kind of claw. The moment the claw came in contact with the light of the prison-suppressing steel, it quickly retreated into the building. Lu Ming retreated a distance and wandered around the area. It seemed that there were terrifying living creatures in the buildings in this area. He did not know which ones were and which were not. It was not safe to barge in like this even with the bloodline of the prison-suppressing steel. Lu Ming pondered. At this moment, a few figures were rushing in Lu Ming's direction at high speed. Just now, the light of the prison-suppressing steel's bloodline was discovered even from a distance. The Blue Demon King and the others were rushing towards Lu Ming. Among them, the Blue Demon King was the fastest. Although he was a peak true emperor and was forbidden to fly in this ancient city, his cultivation was still there. Even if he could not fly, his speed was still astonishing. Lu Ming was hesitating whether he should barge in. However, at this moment, he suddenly had an ominous feeling. He looked behind him and saw a figure dashing toward him at lightning speed. In an instant, it appeared not far away from Lu Ming. The Blue Demon King. Lu Ming's pupils shrank. Lu Ming, die. The Blue Demon King directly attacked Lu Ming. Block it. Lu Ming shouted. The armor rushed towards the Blue Demon King. Boom! The Blue Demon King was so strong that he directly sent the armor flying. Chapter 2062. Facing an expert like the Blue Demon King, rushing outside would only lead to death. Only by rushing inside would there be a chance of survival. Kill! The Blue Demon King shouted as he chased after Lu Ming. However, that armor once again entangled the Blue Demon King. The armor was covered in rust, but at this moment, it was emitting a dense blood-red light. Tentacles extended out and wrapped around the Blue Demon King. Boom! The Blue Demon King punched out. The terrifying fist energy sent the armor flying far away. However, the armor's material was indeed extraordinary. It was indestructible and wasn't destroyed by the Blue Demon King's attack. After the armor was sent flying, it once again flew towards the Blue Demon King. Seeing Lu Ming continuously rushing towards the depths of the ancient city, the Blue Demon King revealed an angry expression. At this moment, the other four also arrived. You guys go chase after Lu Ming. The Blue Demon King coldly said. The other four nodded and chased after him. The Blue Demon King coldly stared at the armor as a layer of black flame spread out from his body. This was a type of demonic fire. It was extremely terrifying and had an astonishing temperature. He pressed down with one hand and the demonic fire surged out and enveloped the armor. After all, the Blue Demon King was a peak true Emperor expert. Although the armor's material was indestructible, it didn't contain a lot of energy. How could it be a match for the Blue Demon King? After being enveloped by the demonic fire, the armor emitted sizzling sounds. The scarlet blood was quickly refined by the demonic fire. Not long after, the armor fell to the ground with a clang, as if it had turned into a pile of scrap metal. Not only was the blood in the armor refined, everything else was also refined, including the trace of imprint. It disappeared without a trace and turned into a pile of scrap metal. Lu Ming, who was running, had a change in his expression. The white skeleton in his hands turned into ashes with a bang. Lu Ming knew that the armor would not be able to stop the Azure Demon King. He was a peak true emperor and was only one step away from becoming a great emperor. He was too powerful. Whoosh! Whoosh! Behind them, four figures quickly chased after Lu Ming at an astonishing speed. It was one of the four martial emperors. One of them was surrounded by a divine light, clearly a true emperor. This emperor was the fastest and chased after Lu Ming with lightning speed. Roar! At this moment, an explosive roar came from a huge building. A huge claw stretched out of the building and grabbed at Lu Ming. Let's fight! Lu Ming didn't stop. He continued to charge inside while controlling the prison-suppressing steel to float above his head. The prison-suppressing steel's bloodline shone brightly. The moment the giant claw got close to the prison-suppressing steel, it was as if it was burned by fire. It hurriedly withdrew. Lu Ming successfully dashed past this building and continued to go deeper. The true emperor caught up in just a few breaths. The true emperor naturally saw the claw earlier. He channeled his world force and was on full alert. Roar! Sure enough, the claw reached out once the true emperor got close. Its scales grew to the size of a house and aimed for the true emperor. What the hell is this? The true emperor roared and unleashed his world force. It turned into an axe and swung down. Boom! The battle axe chopped down on the huge palm, but the palm only trembled a little. It was completely fine. Only a shallow mark was left on the scales on the surface of the palm. On the other hand, the true emperor staggered back several steps. Roar! There seemed to be a terrifying fiend inside the building. It roared and reached for the true emperor with its claw. One could see that it was covered in black scales and bound by black chains. It made clanking noises as it reached for the true emperor. A world seemed to be floating in the true emperor's body. Several colors fused together to unleash a terrifying attack. This was the fusion of several types of laws, and its power was extremely terrifying. Compared to Lu Ming's initial integration of two types of laws, it was many times stronger. In the martial emperor realm, one could cultivate many kinds of laws. They could even merge them together, and their might would be extremely shocking. Boom! The true emperor's attack collided with the claw. Clank! The chains clashed. The claw was stopped, but the true emperor couldn't make it through. This living creature is locked inside and can't get out. I'll block it. You guys rush over and kill Lu Ming. The true emperor said and attacked again, successfully entangling the claw. The other three had a serious expression. They circled around and headed for Lu Ming. Lu Ming went deeper and deeper. He passed through more than 10 buildings, but nothing happened. Boom! Boom! While Lu Ming was running, a loud explosion came from one of the buildings ahead. A gigantic hand reached for Lu Ming. Not only was this huge hand covered in scales, but there was also a terrifying cold current that swept toward Lu Ming. Even though he was far away, Lu Ming felt as though he was about to be frozen. Lu Ming gritted his teeth and continued to attack with the prison-suppressing monument. Fortunately, the prison-suppressing monument bloodline could still restrain the other party. That huge hand stretched back and Lu Ming dashed past it. Behind them, the black-robed middle-aged man and the other two had grave expressions. They weren't true emperors, so they didn't dare to charge forward. They circled around the building and chased after Lu Ming. Alas, they weren't so lucky. They didn't get far before a claw reached out from another building. Not good, retreat. One of them was shocked and retreated frantically. The expressions of the other two also changed abruptly, and they also retreated. But it was too late. The black-robed middle-aged man was the weakest. He was only a 2-star Void Emperor and was caught. Ah! He screamed miserably and tried to break free, but it was to no avail. The hand squeezed and the sound of bones cracking could be heard from the black-robed middle-aged man's body. He vomited blood and lost the strength to struggle. His eyes were filled with unwillingness and fear. He came in to kill Lu Ming for the reward. The reward could even help him survive the next calamity. But now, he was going to die here. After that large hand grabbed the black-robed middle-aged man, it stretched back. Then, within the building, there was a mournful scream, as well as the sound of crunching and chewing. The other two Void Emperors felt cold sweat all over. Even with their cultivation, they were sweating. Obviously, the black-robed middle-aged man was eaten by the creature in the building. The two of them didn't dare to move forward and stopped there. Scram, you bunch of trash. The Blue Demon King rushed over and punched the claw that was fighting with the true emperor. A terrifying devilish flame burned and the claw was knocked away. Its scales scattered and fell to the ground. A peak true emperor was much stronger than an ordinary true emperor. Die. Chapter 2063. The Blue Demon King's strength was truly frightening. He was a peak true emperor expert. Although the creature in the building was powerful, it had been suppressed for countless years and didn't have much battle strength left. Poof! The Blue Demon King's demonic saber slashed down and chopped off the giant arm. Roar! The creature in the building roared. The chains clanged and the building rumbled as if a giant beast wanted to rush out. But in the end, it didn't. The Blue Demon King rushed past and chased after Lu Ming. In front, Lu Ming's expression was solemn. The creatures in these buildings couldn't stop the Blue Demon King at all. He had to increase his speed. Lu Ming erupted with all his strength and rushed forward. Not long after, another creature roared from another building. This time, it was a large flame that spewed out from the building. Lu Ming used the prison-suppressing steel bloodline to block it and rushed past. Next, Lu Ming encountered several buildings with creatures. Lu Ming used the prison-suppressing steel to rush past them all. Behind him, the Blue Demon King chased after Lu Ming at an astonishing speed. If it weren't for the creatures obstructing the Blue Demon King along the way, he would have caught up to Lu Ming long ago. What should I do? Lu Ming quickly thought of a solution in his mind. Right now, he couldn't control the Heaven Emperor's body. With his own cultivation, facing the Blue Demon King was a dead end. However, other than the Heaven Emperor's body, he didn't have any treasures that could resist the Blue Demon King. After that, Lu Ming leaped a long distance. There were no more buildings in front of him, only some low rocks. Lu Ming didn't stop and could only continue forward. Now, he could only rely on his luck. He hoped that there was something that could stop the Blue Demon King. Whoosh! Lu Ming was like a flickering shadow, rushing forward at an astonishing speed. Behind them, the Blue Demon King continuously charged through the buildings and was about to reach the low rocky area. However, at this moment, Lu Ming, who was in front, suddenly stopped. Because there was no road ahead. There was a lake that blocked the way. This was a magma lake that covered an extremely wide area. It completely blocked the path ahead and emitted a terrifying temperature. This was definitely not ordinary magma, which made Lu Ming feel a sense of crisis. Huh, kid, why aren't you running anymore? The Blue Demon King caught up and stopped not too far away. He looked at Lu Ming with a hint of ridicule. Old man, you're too narrow-minded. You've lost your face, but you're blaming it on me. As Lu Ming spoke, he tried to think of a countermeasure. Even in the face of despair, Lu Ming would not give up. It's not a good thing for young people to be in the limelight. The Blue Demon King said coldly and walked towards Lu Ming step by step. In his opinion, Lu Ming should not have made a move back then. He should have just sat there quietly. How could he lose face in front of everyone? Kid, you must have had a lot of fortuitous encounters to be able to reach this step. Give me your things, or any ancient scriptures, and I might let you live. The Blue Demon King sneered. Lu Ming curled his lips. It would be strange if this old man would let him go. Even if he gave him everything, the other party would still kill him and not let him live. How can I believe you? Lu Ming said. In the current situation, you have to believe me even if you don't want to. The Blue Demon King said coldly. Go and kill those 3 guys, and I'll give it to you. I'll give you all the fortuitous encounters I've obtained. Lu Ming looked behind the Blue Demon King. Behind him, the other 3 experts had followed the Blue Demon King's path and arrived here. Hearing this, the 3 of them could not help but stop, their faces turning pale. The Blue Demon King was vicious and merciless. Perhaps he would really do that. Kid, you don't have the qualifications to bargain with me now. If you don't hand it over, I'll cripple you right now and slowly interrogate you. Let's see if you'll hand it over or not. The Blue Demon King's body emitted a cold killing intent, and terrifying demonic flames spread out. Whoosh! At this moment, Lu Ming's figure moved. With a step, his body leaped towards the lava lake. Now, he could only rely on the lava lake to take a gamble. Trying to escape. Die! The Blue Demon King shouted and blasted out a palm. Demonic flames filled the sky and enveloped Lu Ming. The demonic flames were like a bolt of lightning. Its speed was astonishing. In an instant, it caught up to Lu Ming and enveloped Lu Ming. Roar! Lu Ming let out a beast-like roar. Too painful. Being enveloped by the demonic flames was too painful. Lu Ming felt as if his body was about to be burnt to a crisp. Lu Ming frantically circulated his saint power to cover his body. At the same time, he controlled the primal chaos law to cover his body with primal chaos light to resist the attack of the demonic flames. However, the demonic flames were released by the Blue Demon King. A peak true emperor was too terrifying. All of Lu Ming's defenses were burned through in an instant. Plop! At this time, Lu Ming fell into the lava lake and disappeared. After entering the lava lake, Lu Ming gathered his remaining strength and frantically rushed towards the bottom of the lake. You want to leave? Impossible. The Blue Demon King's expression was very cold. He also rushed into the lava lake and chased after Lu Ming. Boom! Boom! The Blue Demon King waved his palms, stirring up the surrounding lava. Several terrifying demonic flames broke through the lava and blasted towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming simply couldn't dodge and was hit by several demonic flames. The terrifying temperature of the demonic flames burned through Lu Ming's defenses. A heart-wrenching pain spread throughout Lu Ming's body. Even with Lu Ming's current spiritual body, he couldn't resist at all. He felt as if his body was turning into ashes bit by bit. However, Lu Ming still didn't give up. He crazily rushed down. The temperature at the bottom of the lava lake was shockingly high. The lower he went, the higher the temperature. Moreover, there was a terrifying pressure pressing down on Lu Ming from all directions. Being burned by the Blue Demon King's demonic flames and the lava's flames, Lu Ming couldn't resist at all. His body was slowly burning into ashes. Lu Ming could feel that the flesh on his body was disappearing, and even his bones were exposed. However, Lu Ming continued to dive at an astonishing speed because the Blue Demon King was still chasing after him. Boom! The Azure Demon struck out with his palm again. However, the pressure of the lava here was already astonishing. Although the Blue Demon King's palm force broke through the lava, a portion of it had already been offset. Only a portion of it landed on Lu Ming's body. At this moment, Lu Ming's hands and feet turned into ashes in the demonic flames. Only his body was still bitterly holding on as he continued to descend. However, the Blue Demon King still didn't give up the chase. The two of them continued to descend. Along the way, the Blue Demon King struck out a few more times. However, due to the obstruction of the lava, most of the power was blocked. At this moment, they had already dived for thousands of meters. At this point, the temperature was extremely terrifying. Even the Blue Demon King felt a sense of danger. It was as if there was something below that could threaten his safety. Humph, this kid is dead for sure. Chapter 2064. The Blue Demon King was certain that Lu Ming was dead for sure. His demonic fire alone wasn't something that Lu Ming could resist. Under his demonic fire, Lu Ming would be reduced to ashes. Moreover, this place was under the magma lake. Even he was wary of the magma here. Not only was the temperature astonishingly high, but the pressure was also frightening. Lu Ming was dead for sure under any one of the two conditions, not to mention the combination of the two conditions. Lu Ming had no chance at all. At this moment, not only were Lu Ming's limbs burned to ashes, but his body was also on the verge of being reduced to ashes. The Blue Demon King sneered and rushed to the surface of the magma lake. Although he didn't obtain Lu Ming's fortune, being able to kill Lu Ming wasn't bad either. In the blink of an eye, the Blue Demon King rushed to the surface of the magma lake and flew to the surface. What happened to that brat? Someone asked. He's dead for sure. Let's go. We'll explore this ancient city and then leave. The Blue Demon King said. Then, his figure flashed and left this place. The other three followed the Blue Demon King. At this moment, Lu Ming was indeed facing the greatest crisis of his life. At this moment, his body was about to be reduced to ashes. Most importantly, he couldn't muster any strength to rush up. His body was completely enveloped by the demonic fire. This was the demonic fire of a peak true emperor. It wouldn't extinguish until its target was reduced to ashes. Asterisk chi chi chi, asterisk Lu Ming could clearly feel that his body was collapsing, disintegrating, and being burned to ashes. There were 3 strands of primal chaos energy in his body. At this moment, the 3 strands of primal chaos energy were like 3 small snakes swimming around before rushing into one of the Saint Hearts. Enter the Saint Heart. Lu Ming used his soul power to move the Great Pill Development Cauldron and the Mountain River diagram in his Sea of Consciousness into another Saint Heart. Next, Lu Ming's soul also rushed into another saint heart. As long as his soul was not destroyed, there was always hope for him to be resurrected. In just a few breaths, Lu Ming's physical body was burned to ashes by the demonic fire and disappeared without a trace. Only the two saint hearts were left floating there. After the demonic fire burned Lu Ming's body to ashes, it seemed to have lost its target and finally disappeared. Not good. Inside the sacred heart, Lu Ming's spirit could still sense everything that was happening outside. At this moment, he discovered that the lava outside was frantically squeezing towards the two sacred hearts. Let the two sacred hearts collide with each other. The magma outside wrapped around the two saint hearts and pressed against them, as if it was going to crush them. Moreover, the terrifying temperature of the magma was also burning the saint hearts, as if it was going to melt them. Lu Ming was worried. If the two sacred hearts were to melt, then he would really have no chance at all. Autumn moon. Lu Ming muttered as he glanced at the great pill development furnace that was floating in the sacred heart. If the sacred heart was shattered, leaving the great pill development furnace here, it would not be able to withstand the terrifying temperature outside. Although the great pill development furnace was miraculous, it would be dangerous in such an environment for a long time. This trip was originally to save Autumn Moon. However, before he could save Autumn Moon, he was already in danger. Clang! At this moment, the two sacred hearts shook violently and a corner of the outer layer crumbled. Boom! When the corner of the sacred heart crumbled, Lu Ming's spirit shook violently as if there was a terrifying flame enveloping his spirit. Am I really going to die here today? This thought flashed through Lu Ming's mind. At this moment, he felt the aura of death. His spirit shook and his consciousness blurred. In the end, his vision turned black and he did not know anything. Only the two sacred hearts were being squeezed by the terrifying magma. However, a strange scene happened. The shattered parts of the two sacred hearts did not dissipate into nothingness. Instead, they stuck together and flew back into the sacred hearts. Clang! Clang! As the magma squeezed and burned, more and more of the two sacred hearts crumbled. However, the fragments and powder of the sacred hearts fused together and flew back into the two sacred hearts. It was as if the two sacred hearts were fusing together. Of course, Lu Ming did not know any of this. Next, the sacred hearts continued to crumble and then fuse together. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. During these 3 days, there were originally 2 sacred hearts. However, this time, there was only one. It turned into a bigger sacred heart. Buzz! When the 2 saint hearts merged into one, a mysterious fluctuation was emitted. Then, the larger saint heart started to spin at an extremely fast speed. At this moment, the sacred heart produced a strange power. The energy in the magma around him gathered toward Lu Ming. Just like that, a few days passed. A strange scene occurred. With the sacred heart as the center, the outline of a body appeared. It was just an outline and not a real body. It was made up of energy. When the outline of the body appeared, the 3 streams of chaotic chi from the sacred heart flew out and wandered around the outline of the body. At the same time, the energy in the magma continued to gather and pour into the sacred heart. Then, it diffused out from the sacred heart and poured into the outline of the body. The silhouette of this body was slowly solidifying. Reforging the body. This was a reforging of the body. When the 2 sacred hearts fused into one, they were reforging the body on their own. Moreover, they were using the energy in the magma to reforge the body. The process of reforging the body was very slow. Just like that, a total of 3 months passed. In the magma, a perfect body appeared. This body was Lu Ming's body. However, this body was a little different from the previous one. There was a fiery red color on the skin, as if flames were burning. The curves of the body were perfect, but they seemed to be filled with explosive power. The 3 streams of chaotic chi were also perfectly fused into the body. At this moment, the fingers of the body moved. Slowly, it opened its eyes. This is Lu Ming looked around in surprise. Finally, he looked at his body and was very shocked. He remembered very clearly that when he was attacked by the Blue Demon King, his body turned into ashes in the demonic fire. Even the sacred heart was squeezed by the magma, his soul was shaken, and his consciousness fell into darkness. He did not expect to find his body still there when he woke up. No, this body is a little different from before. Lu Ming felt something strange the next moment. He found that although this body was still made of flesh and blood, it was stronger than before. The 3 streams of chaotic qi were perfectly fused and full of explosive power. At the same time, this body seemed to be unafraid of the magma around it. It was as if it was one with the magma around it. The magma around it was ineffective against it. This was not because Lu Ming's body was so strong that it was unafraid of the temperature of the magma. It was because his body was reforged with the energy here. Their energy was the same, so it was unafraid. Chapter 2065. My body has been reforged. Lu Ming thought for a while and realized the problem. He was overjoyed. Although he did not understand how his body had been reforged, it was a good thing no matter what. No, my sacred heart. At this moment, Lu Ming finally realized that something was wrong with his sacred heart. Previously, there were 2 sacred hearts. How did it become one now? It was just that this sacred heart was bigger. Could it be that the 2 sacred hearts have merged together? Lu Ming guessed and was shocked. He had never thought that the 2 sacred hearts that had been cultivated with the twin life forbidden skill could merge together. Moreover, Lu Ming realized that not only had his body been reforged, but his cultivation had also increased. He had reached the great circle of the absolute saint realm. Not only that, Lu Ming also realized that after the 2 sacred hearts had merged, his 2 laws had also completely merged. Previously, the array law and the chaotic law had only been in the initial stages of merging. Now, they had completely merged. The 2 laws have completely merged. Their power will definitely increase greatly. Lu Ming was pleasantly surprised. This time, it was a blessing in disguise. Not only did he not die, but his cultivation had also broken through. Moreover, the strength of his body had increased greatly. The 2 laws had also merged. He had heard that martial emperors had to take this step. Martial emperors needed to comprehend different laws. Then, they needed to fuse the different laws together. He was now doing what martial emperors should do. If the Blue Demon King knew about this, he would probably be furious. Lu Ming's lips curled into a faint smile. Then, with a thought, the mountain river diagram and the great pill development furnace returned to his mind. The suppressing prison steel bloodline and the 3rd bloodline are still there. Lu Ming sensed the suppressing prison steel bloodline and the 3rd bloodline and found that they were still there. This made him secretly amazed. He had never been able to understand these 2 bloodlines and felt that it was very strange. This time, even his body had been destroyed. After the reforging, the 2 bloodlines were still there. This was really difficult to explain. It was extremely mysterious. However, this was a good thing for Lu Ming. I don't know how much time has passed, but the energy here is very abundant. I can let the Celestial Emperor's body absorb energy here. Thinking of this, Lu Ming's mind stirred, and the Heavenly Emperor's physical body appeared from the mountain and river diagram. Following that, Lu Ming activated his cultivation technique and began to control the Celestial Thearcha's body to absorb the surrounding energy. The Celestial Thearcha's body was like a black hole, absorbing the energy from the outside like crazy. In the magma, a large amount of fire energy was absorbed by the Sky Emperor's body. Not long after, with the Celestial Thearcha's body as the center, all the energy in the magma was sucked dry and turned into rock. Lu Ming could only move to another location and continue absorbing. The energy required for a Heavenly Emperor's physical body was too much, incomparably astonishing. Back then, Lu Ming had spent more than half a year. In that more than half a year, he had been fighting with the evil god tribe. Every time he killed an evil god tribe member, he would let the Celestial Emperor's body absorb the crystals that they carried. In that more than half a year, Lu Ming had killed countless evil god tribe members and let the Celestial Emperor's body absorb countless crystals and energy. In the end, the Celestial Emperor's body's energy had only accumulated to 12%. Moreover, the more the Celestial Emperor's body's energy accumulated, the harder it was to increase it. The energy required was even more shocking. Just like that, Lu Ming continued to absorb energy under the magma. Large amounts of magma turned into rock. 2 days later, the Celestial Emperor's body's energy had increased to 8%. This was because the Celestial Emperor's body had already stored a portion of energy before. 8% is not enough. I need at least 10%. The temperature below the magma is higher, so I'll go down and absorb. A thought flashed through Lu Ming's mind and he headed down. As long as the Celestial Emperor's body's energy had accumulated to more than 10%, Lu Ming would be able to control it. At that time, he would be able to fight against a great emperor. This time, his chances of obtaining the immemorial demon coffin would be greatly increased. Also, there was the Blue Demon King. A cold killing intent flashed in Lu Ming's eyes. He had to kill the Blue Demon King. Lu Ming rushed down into the magma lake. The temperature below the magma lake was shockingly high. Even the Blue Demon King had retreated. It could be seen how shocking it was. Even though Lu Ming's current body was reforged with the energy of the magma lake, he didn't dare to go too deep. Otherwise, he would be turned into ashes. Lu Ming didn't want to experience the feeling of being turned into ashes again. This time, he was lucky to have reforged his body. Next time, he might not be so lucky. This is it. After diving for a while, Lu Ming felt a terrifying pressure and stopped. He controlled the Celestial Emperor's body and began to absorb energy. The energy here was indeed much stronger. When he finished absorbing the nearby energy, Lu Ming moved to another place and continued to absorb. Of course, it was just a horizontal shift. Lu Ming didn't dare to continue diving. After a few more days, the energy in the Celestial Emperor's body increased explosively. It reached a shocking 16%. It was 4% more than the previous time. Enough. Lu Ming was overjoyed. 16% energy was absolutely shocking. If he fought the great emperor of the He clan again with this amount of energy, he would definitely beat him into a pulp. Lu Ming decided to leave this place. The key was that the energy above the magma lake had almost been completely absorbed by Lu Ming. If he went down, the temperature would be too high. Lu Ming didn't dare to go down. Moreover, he didn't know how long he had been here. He wondered how the ancient great emperor and the others were doing. Did they find the ancient demon coffin? Lu Ming put the Celestial Emperor's body into the mountain river diagram. Then, he broke through the rocks and rushed up. After a while, Lu Ming left the magma lake and landed on the shore. He looked around and didn't see anyone. It seems like the Blue Demon King and the others have all left. I don't know how long it's been. Let's look at the map first. Lu Ming thought. He took out the black jade talisman and injected his saint power into it. Suddenly, a black diagram floated in the air. Something's happening. Lu Ming's heart jumped. The other parts of the black diagram were pitch black. However, there were some dots of light shining in the darkness. This meant that someone had also activated the jade talisman to see it. In one place, there was a group of dots of light. There were at least 100 of them, shining brightly. And in other places, there were dots of light moving towards that group of dots of light. There are so many people gathered together. Could it be that the ancient great emperor had already gathered everyone? Lu Ming thought. This meant that the ancient great emperor hadn't taken back the ancient demon coffin. Let's go. Lu Ming put away the jade talisman and rushed out of the city. When he passed by the buildings, there were still beast roars and claws attacking him. However, Lu Ming took out the prison-suppressing steel bloodline and passed through the building safely. Not long after, Lu Ming passed through the entire ancient city and exited the city gate. Kill. Chapter 2066. The black mass of demonic spirits charged at Lu Ming. Among them, there were 2 one-star illusionary emperor demonic spirits. Their attacks were terrifying. Scram. Lu Ming activated the suppressing hell skill and threw out 2 punches. Dong. Dong. Lu Ming's attack collided with the 2 demonic spirit martial emperors, creating 2 loud explosions. The 2 demonic spirit martial emperors' bodies shook violently. They could not block Lu Ming's terrifying power and were forced to retreat. I'll use you guys to test my battle strength. Kill. Lu Ming's arms shook. He felt that his body was filled with boundless power. Chaotic Calamity Finger. Lu Ming pointed out 2 fingers. Sacred power burst out. At the same time, the law of array and the law of primal chaos merged and strengthened the Chaotic Calamity Finger. The 2 terrifying finger forces blasted toward the 2 demonic spirit martial emperors. Wherever he passed, energy surged, and all the demonic spirits in front of him all collapsed and exploded. The 2 demonic spirit martial emperors seemed to feel threatened. They unleashed their full strength and attacked Lu Ming. Boom! Boom! 2 earth-shattering explosions rang out. This time, the 2 demonic spirit martial emperors' bodies shook violently. They were forced to retreat and their bodies almost exploded. Lu Ming's eyes lit up with joy. His battle prowess had indeed skyrocketed by a large margin. The 2 one-star martial emperors were completely suppressed by him. Previously, when Lu Ming's cultivation was at the peak of the absolute saint realm, he was no match for the one-star martial emperors. He was at a disadvantage and was suppressed by the other party. At that time, Lu Ming's battle strength was enough to contend with an ordinary one-star martial emperor if he had broken through to the peak of the absolute saint realm. However, this time, Lu Ming's cultivation had not only broken through. The strength of his physical body and the fusion of the 2 laws had increased his battle strength again. He could already suppress one-star martial emperors. Even the 2 one-star martial emperors were suppressed by him. Whoosh! Whoosh! Lu Ming continued to point out the Chaotic Calamity Finger. The 2 demonic spirit martial emperors were forced back by Lu Ming. They could only barely resist. As for the demonic spirits below the martial emperor level, they exploded when they were swept by Lu Ming's finger forces. Bang! Bang! The weapons of the 2 demonic spirit martial emperors were sent flying by Lu Ming. Cracks appeared on their bodies. If it wasn't for the fact that their armors were extremely tough, they would have been shattered by Lu Ming. Kill! Not far away, shouts of killing could be heard as a few more demonic spirits rushed over. They were all martial emperors. I'm not going to play with you anymore. Let's go. Lu Ming's figure turned around and rushed outside. Everywhere he passed, large swathes of devil spirits were scattered. Ordinary devil spirits couldn't stop him at all. Lu Ming rampaged, breaking through the attack of the devil spirit army in a short while, and disappeared here. After leaving this area, Lu Ming took out the jade card again and activated the pattern on it. He could clearly see that Lu Ming's side also had a dot of light shining. Lu Ming found a direction and rushed towards that pile of dots of light. Along the way, they didn't encounter anything strange. It was very peaceful. Lu Ming got closer and closer to that group of dots of light. However, it still took 3 days for Lu Ming to get close to those dots of light. When Xiao Qin looked into the distance, he saw a group of people standing high in the sky. With one glance, Lu Ming saw the ancient Great Emperor. There was also the Blue Demon King. Furthermore, the few martial emperors who chased after him back then were also there. Lu Ming's eyes emitted a cold killing intent. In the next moment, he concealed it very well. Lu Ming put away the jade card and flew towards the ancient Great Emperor's group. With the ancient Great Emperor around, Xiao Qin believed that the Blue Demon King would not dare to make a move against him. Furthermore, Lu Ming did not fear the Blue Demon King now. If the other party made a move, Lu Ming could use this opportunity to eliminate the other party. Lu Ming flew over, attracting everyone's attention. Lu Ming, you. When the Blue Demon King saw Lu Ming, his mouth opened so wide that it could fit a duck egg. His eyeballs were about to fall out. It was simply unbelievable. Wasn't Lu Ming's body burned by his demonic fire and he was blasted into the magma? How was he still alive? Furthermore, Lu Ming's body looked undamaged. Even his aura seemed much stronger. You, who are you? The Blue Demon King stammered. He even suspected that the Lu Ming before him was someone else in disguise. Blue Demon King, it looks like you're really old. You don't even recognize me? Lu Ming sneered. You, how could this be? The Blue Demon King was still flabbergasted. The few martial emperors who chased after Lu Ming were also flabbergasted, their faces filled with disbelief. Thanks to the Blue Demon King, I'm fine. I just accidentally broke through my cultivation. Lu Ming smiled faintly. The Blue Demon King almost spat out a mouthful of old blood. His cultivation had broken through. Lu Ming wanted to tell him that not only was he fine, but his cultivation had also broken through. This is all thanks to the Blue Demon King. If it wasn't for the Blue Demon King, my cultivation would probably still need some time to break through. Lu Ming said again. The Blue Demon King only felt pain in his liver, lungs, and entire body. His breath was stuck in his chest, and he really almost spat out a mouthful of old blood. What's going on? The ancient Great Emperor looked over. Great Emperor, I'm fine. The Blue Demon King hurriedly said. It's good that you're fine. Our goal is to take back the ancient demonic coffin. None of you should act recklessly. The ancient Great Emperor warned. With his experience, how could he not see that something must have happened between Lu Ming and the Blue Demon King? However, since Lu Ming was fine, he would not care. Lu Ming also smiled faintly and did not say anything. The Blue Demon King secretly glanced at Lu Ming, a cold killing intent flashing in his eyes. Under such circumstances, Lu Ming did not die, which shocked him. Moreover, he had broken through. There had always been a saying in the cultivation world. Some peerless geniuses were born with great luck. Such people were usually very difficult to kill. Often, when faced with danger, they could turn it into safety and even use it to break through. In the Blue Demon King's opinion, Lu Ming was such a person. Such a person should be eliminated. He and Lu Ming were already mortal enemies. When Lu Ming grew stronger in the future, he would definitely seek revenge on him. Therefore, he had to eliminate Lu Ming before Lu Ming grew stronger. All of them had different thoughts in their minds. In the end, Lu Ming looked for others to inquire about the news. After asking, Lu Ming found out that he had been in the magma for a few months. This time, the ancient Great Emperor found traces of the ancient demonic coffin. Therefore, he used the map to gather everyone here. When the time came, they would snatch the ancient demonic coffin back. Time passed day by day. More and more people came here. After a few more days, there were already more than 200 people here. At this time, the ancient Great Emperor introduced the situation to everyone. The ancient Great Emperor waved his hand and a picture appeared in the air. In the picture, there was a large mountain. On the mountain, there was a group of figures. That is, everyone's eyes narrowed because the figures on the mountain were all wearing black robes. Their faces could not be seen clearly, but they looked very similar to the person who had fought with the ancient Great Emperor. Chapter 2067. Of course, with so many black-robed men, it was impossible for all of them to be great emperors. They were probably from the same race. The group of black-robed men looked skinny and not very burly. At this moment, they were circling a huge black coffin, shouting different things as if they were performing some kind of ritual. Is that the ancient demonic coffin? Lu Ming stared at the huge black coffin in the image. His eyes flashed with a blazing light. Boom! Suddenly, one of the black-robed men looked at the void as if he was looking at them. With a wave of his hand, the void trembled and the image formed by the ancient Great Emperor collapsed. Obviously, the other party's Great Emperor had discovered that the ancient Great Emperor was spying on them. The other party has an immortal emperor, the same one who fought against me before. There are also some other experts. Later on, I will act to tie down their immortal emperor while you guys act to seize the Ionic Devil coffin. After that, don't stay here any longer and immediately leave the Devil Sea. Do you understand? The ancient Great Emperor instructed. Yes, Great Emperor. Everyone obeyed. Following which, the ancient Great Emperor took the lead and everyone flew forward. Not long after, a huge mountain appeared in front of them. Everyone's eyesight was very shocking. They could see it even from afar. That mountain was the image that the ancient Great Emperor had shown just now. At the peak of the mountain, there was a group of black-robed men circling a huge demonic coffin. The ancient Great Emperor moved and rushed towards the mountain. His speed was so fast that it was faster than everyone could react. When the ancient Great Emperor got close to the mountain, a black light rushed out from the mountain. It was like a black waterfall that cut through the void. It was also like a demonic blade that slashed towards the ancient Great Emperor. Boom! The ancient Great Emperor also made his move. When the two of them collided, a shocking explosion rang out. Dong! Dong! The two of them continued to exchange blows, causing the sky to rumble. The two of them fought high up in the sky and tore the space apart. It's our turn to attack. Kill! Azure Demon shouted coldly and rushed towards the mountain. Before he left, he coldly glanced at Lu Ming. The strongest true emperors and void emperors rushed forward because they were much faster than quasi-emperors. Then, the most numerous quasi-emperors also charged forward. Lu Ming was among the many quasi-emperors. In a few breaths, those martial emperors were about to reach the mountain in front. However, at this moment, two figures suddenly stopped in front of Lu Ming. They were two old men with extremely powerful auras. They were both Void Emperor realm experts. The two of them revealed a faint killing intent as they blocked Lu Ming's path. Some quasi-emperors looked at Lu Ming with pitiful expressions. However, no one stayed behind, all of them flying forward. All of a sudden, only Lu Ming and the two old men were left. What is the meaning of this? Lu Ming said calmly. It's simple. I'll take your life. The old man on the right revealed a cold smile. The Blue Demon King asked you to kill me again. Lu Ming sneered. So what if you know? You're still going to die. The old man on the right said. Let's end this quickly. It's not good to be discovered by the Great Emperor. The old man on the left said. In the next moment, the two old men's auras skyrocketed. They were about to kill Lu Ming. Then die. At this moment, a stone sword appeared in Lu Ming's hand. Whoosh! Lu Ming held the stone sword and slashed out. A crescent-shaped sword light slashed out. Puff! Puff! The two Void Emperor realm old men's attacks and defenses were useless. They were cut in half by Lu Ming's sword. The terrifying sword chi went through their bodies and instantly destroyed their souls. In the face of the Heavenly Emperor's sword, the two Void Emperors were killed instantly without any resistance. Lu Ming put away their storage rings and dashed toward the mountain in front of him. At this moment, a great battle had broken out on the mountain. The experts of the ancient demon nation and the black-robed men were fighting fiercely. Lu Ming restrained his aura. Like a ghost, he approached the mountain at high speed. He did not attack. He wanted to use the divine breath technique to climb the mountain silently and take the ancient demon coffin. Lu Ming followed the mountain and avoided the others by using the boulders. Soon, he was halfway up the mountain and would reach the peak soon. Boom! Boom! Around the mountain, there was a great battle between martial emperors. Gravel flew everywhere. All kinds of boulders were thrown at Lu Ming. Lu Ming's body flashed and dodged them skillfully. Lu Ming was quickly approaching the peak. Suddenly, a blazing aura blasted toward Lu Ming at an alarming speed. Lu Ming's hair stood on end. His body that was moving forward suddenly stopped and then retreated rapidly. Boom! A beam of scorching black light blasted the spot where Lu Ming was standing just now. A pitch-black hole immediately appeared on the mountain. Lu Ming, you are really lucky. An old man appeared in front of Lu Ming. His eyes were cold. Who else could it be other than the Blue Demon King? Just now, the Blue Demon King had defeated an opponent and wanted to rush to the peak. Unexpectedly, he found Lu Ming and attacked Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming's spiritual senses were sharp and he managed to dodge the attack. The Blue Demon King's eyes were filled with killing intent and shock. He had sent 2 Void Emperors to kill Lu Ming. They were not ordinary Void Emperors. One was a 3-star Void Emperor and the other was a 4-star Void Emperor. However, Lu Ming was safe and sound. This shocked him. He was determined to kill Lu Ming. Since I didn't kill you last time, I'll kill you again. This time, I'll turn you into ashes and scatter your soul. Let's see if you can still survive. The Blue Demon King's eyes were gloomy as his body emitted devilish flames. A peak true emperor was too frightening. If he used his full strength, he could turn Lu Ming into ashes in one move. Back in the ancient city, the Blue Demon King did not use his full strength. Later, Lu Ming jumped into the magma and the magma greatly hindered the Blue Demon King's attack. Otherwise, Lu Ming would not have had the chance to merge 2 Saint Hearts. Bang! The Blue Demon King moved. He took a step forward and his devilish flames turned into a devilish flame saber that slashed at Lu Ming. Lu Ming was not afraid. He held the stone sword and slashed out. Boom! The stone sword and the devilish flame saber clashed, creating a terrifying explosion. Lu Ming felt a powerful force surging towards him and couldn't help but retreat. However, the devilish flame saber was blocked by him. Your sword. The Blue Demon King was shocked. Lu Ming could actually block his attack. His gaze fell on the stone sword in Lu Ming's hand, which was emitting blazing flames. Lu Ming was only a paragon saint, but he could unleash such terrifying power with the stone sword. If he had it, wouldn't he be able to fight against a great emperor? The Blue Demon King's heart was burning. He understood that the 2 Void Emperors from before were killed by this sword. Hand over the sword and I'll leave your corpse intact. Chapter 2068. The Blue Demon King stared at the stone sword in Lu Ming's hand. His body was covered in terrifying demonic flames, raising the temperature of the scene to a terrifying level. Blue Demon King, I'll send you on your way today. Lu Ming's lips curled into a cold smile. Following that, a stone golem appeared in front of Lu Ming. When the stone golem first appeared, it was only as tall as a person. However, it rapidly grew in size until it was like a small mountain. The Blue Demon King was stunned. He had a bad feeling in his heart. At this moment, Lu Ming took a step forward. His body fused with the stone golem and disappeared into it. Blue Demon King, die. The stone golem roared and slapped at the Blue Demon King. The Blue Demon King's pupils shrank. He felt a terrifying danger and frantically retreated. However, the stone golem's hand was even faster. It instantly caught up to the Blue Demon King and blocked all of the Blue Demon King's escape routes. Boom. The stone golem's aura was extremely powerful as the stone golem's hand pressed down. The Blue Demon King was terrified. He erupted with all his strength and controlled a true emperor weapon to attack the stone golem's hand. He wanted to block the attack. However, the stone golem's true emperor weapon was directly destroyed. A terrifying force bombarded the Blue Demon King's body. The Blue Demon King miserably screamed as his body was sent flying. He crashed into the mountain, causing the entire mountain to tremble. This mountain had been corroded by demonic energy for many years and had long become immortal. However, it was still shattered by the Blue Demon King, creating a huge crater. How is this possible? How is this possible? The Blue Demon King crazily roared in his heart. He found it hard to believe that the stone golem's power was so strong. He was a peak true emperor, but he still couldn't resist this stone golem. He was truly terrified. But if Lu Ming had such a powerful stone man, why didn't he use it in the ancient city? At that time, Lu Ming had almost died at his hands, and he hadn't even used the stone man. Could it be that Lu Ming had obtained the stone man in the ancient city? The stone man found under the magma? Thinking of this, the Blue Demon King almost vomited blood. If that was the case, wouldn't he be helping Lu Ming? Boom! The stone giant landed heavily in front of the Blue Demon King. The Blue Demon King was greatly alarmed. He wanted to use a secret technique to escape, but the stone giant stomped down, directly crushing the Blue Demon King beneath its feet. The Blue Demon King screamed miserably like a toad that had been stepped on and almost exploded. "Don't kill me, Lu Ming. Let me go. I'm an important official of the ancient devil nation. If you kill me, you'll be offending the entire nation." The Blue Demon King was terrified. He wanted to use the ancient devil nation to threaten Lu Ming. "Don't use the ancient devil nation to threaten me. You're just a peak true emperor. You can't represent the ancient devil nation. Die." Lu Ming didn't say anything else. He held the stone sword in his hand and slashed at the Blue Demon King. The Blue Demon King roared crazily. He was almost scared out of his wits. He struggled with all his might, but it was useless. The battle sword slashed down, and the Blue Demon King's head exploded like a watermelon. His soul scattered. After killing the Blue Demon King, Lu Ming kept the Blue Demon King's storage ring. He then took a step forward and rushed to the top of the mountain. A black-robed man tried to stop him, but he was killed with a single slash. With the energy stored in the stone giant, he could easily abuse the great emperor of the He clan. No one below the great emperor realm could stop Lu Ming. Those who dared to stop Lu Ming were instantly killed. In a few breaths' time, Lu Ming reached the top of the mountain. At this moment, most of the black-robed men were attracted to the battle with the ancient devil nation. There was only one black-robed man who was still sitting beside the giant coffin. Ancient devil coffin. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. As long as he could get the ancient devil coffin, he could save Autumn Moon. Swoosh! Lu Ming stretched out his hand and grabbed the ancient devil coffin. But at this time, the black-robed figure sitting cross-legged in front of the demonic coffin suddenly opened his eyes. Two rays of light shot out from his eyes like two terrifying divine swords, piercing through everything. Clang! Clang! The two rays of light hit Lu Ming's hand, and the sound of metal clashing could be heard. A terrifying force stopped the hand from moving forward. At the same time, the black-robed man rushed forward. His body emitted a terrifying demonic light. He waved his hands, and two black palm prints were sent towards Lu Ming. The palm prints were powerful enough to topple the mountains and overturn the seas. Great Emperor. There was actually a great emperor here. There were actually two great emperors among the black-robed men. One of them was fighting with the ancient great emperor, while the other was guarding this place. Under the Devil's Sea, there was a group of black-robed men. There were actually two great emperors among them. This was shocking. Lu Ming clenched his fist, and the fist of the stone man was sent towards the black-robed man. Boom! Boom! There were two consecutive deafening booms. Lu Ming had blocked the other party's two palm prints. Slash! With a thought, Lu Ming's stone sword flew out and slashed down. The black-robed man's body jerked, and demonic light filled the sky. At the same time, he controlled the power of the Great Tao, and turned it into a demonic weapon that attacked Lu Ming. Dong! Another loud explosion could be heard. The stone sword buzzed, and it was sent flying back into Lu Ming's hand. Lu Ming held the stone sword in his hand and continuously slashed at the black-robed man. He unleashed a torrential attack, completely ignoring his own injuries. The black-robed man used the Great Tao as a weapon, and his attack power was shocking. However, when it landed on the Heavenly Emperor's body, it couldn't break through the defense of the Heavenly Emperor's body at all. Heavenly Emperor Heng Yu used the body of a stone man to attain the Heavenly Emperor realm. His body's defensive power was stronger than ordinary Heavenly Emperors. Ordinary Great Emperors couldn't break through it at all. Lu Ming erupted with all his strength, ignoring his defense. His combat power increased greatly. The black-robed man was forced back by Lu Ming and was at a disadvantage for a moment. After more than 10 moves, the black-robed man was sent flying by Lu Ming's sword. Lu Ming seized the opportunity and appeared in front of the demonic coffin. He reached out with his claw, wanting to grab the demonic coffin. However, at this moment, Lu Ming was suddenly stunned. The ancient demonic coffin didn't have a lid. Therefore, standing at this position, he could clearly see the situation inside the demonic coffin. There was actually a person lying inside the demonic coffin. It was a woman with peerless beauty. Xian Yanqing. The woman in the demonic coffin was actually Xian Yanqing. The moment he saw Xian Yanqing, Lu Ming was completely stunned. Why would Xian Yanqing appear here? Back then, the Ice Dragon ancestor had brought Xian Yanqing and the Cloud Dragon Valley Master had brought Lu Ming. They had broken out from different directions. From then on, he had lost contact with Xian Yanqing and had never seen her again. In the blink of an eye, several years had passed. However, he never expected that Xian Yanqing would appear here. This was one of the forbidden areas of the land of infinite demons, the Devil Sea. Moreover, Xian Yanqing was still lying in the demonic coffin. After scanning with his spiritual sense, Xian Yanqing's vital signs were normal. There was no problem at all. Lu Ming let out a long breath. However, Xian Yanqing's eyes were closed as she lay in the demonic coffin. It was as if she couldn't sense anything from the outside world. Put it away first. Lu Ming didn't care so much. He would put it away first. Chapter 2069. Get lost. Lu Ming shouted. Since Xian Yanqing was lying in the ancient demonic coffin, Lu Ming was determined to get his hands on the ancient demonic coffin. Lu Ming waved his stone sword and launched a barrage of attacks at the black-robed emperor. The black-robed emperor was pushed back again. Just when Lu Ming had the chance to keep the ancient demonic coffin, the space above the mountain cracked open and a figure appeared. The figure was covered in demonic light and his face could not be seen clearly. With a wave of his hand, a huge hand was formed and grabbed at the ancient demonic coffin. Get lost. Lu Ming left the black-robed great emperor and took a heavy step forward. His huge figure dashed toward the figure that had suddenly appeared. At the same time, the stone sword slashed out violently. Boom! The sword light shattered the giant hand that the other party had congealed. The sword light did not stop and continued to attack the other party. The figure could only block the attack and clashed with the stone sword. Boom! The figure was pushed back a few steps and the demonic light on his body shook, revealing his face. Undying Emperor. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. The expert that had appeared was the Undying Emperor of the Undying Demon Nation. The Undying Emperor wants the ancient demonic coffin, the ancient demonic coffin. Lu Ming's heart stirred as he guessed the undead Heavenly Emperor's intention. Shush! The Undying Emperor did not want to fight with Lu Ming. His body shook and a dozen figures appeared and rushed towards the ancient demonic coffin from all directions. It was impossible to tell the real one from the fake. It was as if all of them were real. Don't even think about it. Lu Ming shouted in his heart. He controlled the stone man and its body shrunk to the size of a normal person. Lu Ming's speed increased tremendously after he became the size of a normal person. He took a step forward and rushed towards the ancient demonic coffin. At the same time, he slashed out with his sword and a dozen sword lights were shot towards the undying emperor's figures. Bang! More than 10 figures of the undead emperor attacked at the same time. All of them displayed their terrifying battle strength and defeated Lu Ming's sword light. Just as Lu Ming was about to reach the Ionic Devil coffin, the black-robed Great Emperor appeared once more, blocking Lu Ming's path. The three of them fell into a chaotic battle. Lu Ming and the Undying Emperor Lord wanted to snatch the Ionic Demon coffin, whereas the black-robed Emperor Lord wanted to protect the Ionic Demon coffin. Lu Ming was infuriated. He completely disregarded his own defense. The energy within the stone man erupted wildly, suppressing the other two for a moment. But in this way, the stone golem's energy consumption was astonishing. It wouldn't be able to last for too long. Don't even think about it. At this moment, the black-robed emperor howled, his voice hoarse and unpleasant to the ears. He actually risked his injuries to receive an attack from Lu Ming and retreated towards the Ionic Devil coffin. Dong! At the same time, he blasted out a move that landed on the ancient fiend coffin, sending it flying away. In that direction, there was a ravine that was filled with demonic chi. It was pitch black. The Ionic Devil coffin flew into the ravine and disappeared. The Ionic Devil coffin is mine. The Undying Emperor Lord charged towards the ravine. But just as he was about to charge in, he seemed to be blocked by a force. Following this, the Undying Emperor Lord's body was sent flying. At the same time, Lu Ming also charged towards the ravine. Boom! At the entrance of the ravine, Lu Ming seemed to have rammed into a wall. There was a force blocking him. Lu Ming unleashed the energy within the stone golem, but it was useless. He was blocked by the force and couldn't charge in. Moreover, there was a powerful force in the ravine that charged towards Lu Ming. Even the stone golem's energy couldn't resist it. Lu Ming was sent flying. Those above the Martial Emperor realm can't enter. Those below the Martial Emperor realm can forget about coming out. The black-robed Great Emperor sneered. However, it seemed like Lu Ming did not hear him. He continued to charge into the ravine with a kick. As he was about to reach the entrance of the ravine, the stone golem emitted a glow and disappeared, revealing Lu Ming's actual body. With a whoosh, Lu Ming charged into the ravine and disappeared. Those below the Martial Emperor realm. The black-robed Great Emperor blurted out. He then let out a hollow laugh and said, "Those below the Martial Emperor realm can enter, but they won't be able to come out for the rest of their lives." Damn it! The Undying Emperor Lord let out a furious roar and charged into the ravine once again. The black-robed Great Emperor did not stop him. This time, the Undying Emperor did not manage to enter the ravine. He was sent flying by a force. Bang! A loud explosion could be heard in the sky. Following this, 2 rays of light flew in the direction of the ravine. Following this, 2 figures appeared. They were the ancient Great Emperor and the other black-robed Great Emperor. The 2 black-robed Great Emperors had gathered together. The ancient Great Emperor glanced at the Undying Emperor coldly and said, "Undying, are you here to steal the ancient demonic coffin too? Brother Ancient One, you can't even protect your own treasure well and have it stolen by someone else. I'm here to help you retrieve it." The Undying Emperor let out a hollow laugh with a disdainful look. "There's no need for you to worry." The Ancient Emperor snorted coldly before looking at the gorge. Stepping forth, he headed in the direction of the gorge. The 2 black-robed Great Emperors stood to the side without any intention of stopping him. However, the ancient Great Emperor was the same as the Undying Emperor. He was sent flying by the force. "You can't enter, please leave," one of the black-robed Great Emperors said. "Aren't you going to hand over the ancient demonic coffin that you stole from me?" The ancient Great Emperor's eyes were extremely cold. "Of course it's useful. Besides, we can't give it to you even if we want to. Those above the Martial Emperor realm can't enter, and those below the Martial Emperor realm can't come out either. One of the black-robed great emperors said with a hollow laugh. Those below the martial emperor realm can't come out? The ancient great emperor frowned. So, please leave. Don't think about letting those below the martial emperor realm in. This is the sacred place of our tribe. No one can enter. One of the black-robed great emperors said. The two of them moved and blocked the entrance of the ravine. This is your business. I won't interfere. The undying emperor laughed. Although he couldn't get the ancient demonic coffin, it wasn't his to begin with. So, he didn't lose anything. On the other hand, the ancient great emperor had suffered a great loss after losing the ancient demonic coffin. The undying emperor laughed. He then tore the space apart and left the place. The ancient great emperor looked at the ravine with a hint of unwillingness in his eyes. He then flew into the sky and shouted, "Stop! Leave this place! Stop it!" The black-robed great emperors ordered. All of a sudden, the people from both sides stopped fighting and rushed up into the sky. They came to the ancient great emperor's side. "Great Emperor, the Blue Demon King has been killed by Lu Ming." One of the true emperors reported to the ancient great emperor. "I know." The Blue Demon King asked for it. The ancient great emperor nodded with a cold look in his eyes. Although he was fighting with the enemy, he was still paying attention to the situation below. He knew everything that had happened. Chapter 2070. Hearing the ancient great emperor's words, no one dared to say anything. They knew that the Blue Demon King's death was in vain. This was because the abilities that Lu Ming had displayed were simply too terrifying. Not to mention his rare talents, just the stone statue alone was enough to fight against an emperor. This alone was enough to gain the attention of the ancient great emperor. The Blue Demon King was just a true emperor. Given his age, it was impossible for him to break through to the emperor realm in his lifetime. Therefore, his death was in vain. "Let's go back first," the ancient great emperor said. Of course, he wouldn't give up on the ancient demonic coffin. The ancient demonic coffin had been passed down for countless years. It was the most precious treasure of the ancient demonic kingdom. It was mysterious and he wouldn't give it up so easily. He planned to go back first and bring more experts with him. Soon, the people of the ancient demonic kingdom left the place. Will that kid be okay after going in? A black-robed emperor looked in the direction of the valley. Martial emperors can't enter this place. Those below martial emperors can't come out unless they are heaven-defying geniuses. However, such geniuses were rare even in the ancient era. Another black-robed emperor said. As soon as Lu Ming rushed into the valley, he saw the ancient demonic coffin in front of him. Lu Ming hurried over and looked into the demonic coffin. Xian Yanqing was lying quietly in the coffin. His breathing was even as if he was asleep. This was definitely Xian Yanqing. Lu Ming wouldn't be mistaken. His aura was exactly the same. "Shao Qing, Shao Qing." Lu Ming called out softly. However, Xian Yanqing didn't respond at all. Why is Shao Qing here? Moreover, he's lying in the ancient demonic coffin. The ancient demonic coffin should have been stolen by the black-robed emperors. They spent so much effort to steal the ancient demonic coffin. Why did they put Shao Qing in the coffin? Could it be that Shao Qing's soul was injured and those black-robed emperors were trying to save Shao Qing? Lu Ming was filled with doubts and guesses. However, all of this would have to wait for Xian Yanqing to wake up to find out the answer. Let's leave this place first, Lu Ming thought to himself. Then, he looked behind him and was shocked by what he saw. Because there was no path behind. That place was clearly the entrance to the canyon, the place where Lu Ming had just entered. But now, there was nothing there. There was no entrance to the canyon. Lu Ming punched out, and a fist energy blasted towards the void, but it was like a stone sinking into the sea, and did not stir up any waves. There's no way back. Looks like I can only go forward. Lu Ming looked toward the front of the canyon. Up ahead, it was incomparably deep and dark. It was unknown how long it went or where it led to. Lu Ming stored the ancient demonic coffin into the mountain and river diagram and proceeded forward. Stop. You can't cross this path. Suddenly, a figure stood in front of Lu Ming and spoke coldly. It was a middle-aged man with a saber on his back. Lu Ming narrowed his eyes slightly and said, "Senior, I came here by accident. Please make things easy for me. You can't cross this place unless you defeat me." The middle-aged man's eyes were cold, and his voice was cold as if he was not a real person. Lu Ming looked carefully and saw that the middle-aged man was not a real person, but a condensation of energy. Could it be that I have to go through some tests to get out of here? Lu Ming thought to himself. In the next moment, he rushed over and used the hell-suppressing heaven skill to punch out. Swoosh! A saber light with a black light burst out, splitting the fog and slashing toward Lu Ming. Boom! The saber light collided with Lu Ming's fist. Lu Ming felt a terrifying force surging toward him, as if it was going to tear his body apart. Lu Ming's figure could not help but retreat. What a terrifying force! Lu Ming's eyes revealed a trace of shock. Lu Ming could tell that the middle-aged burly man was at the quasi-emperor realm. However, his strength was indeed a little frightening. Lu Ming had used the hell-suppressing heaven skill and the law of primal chaos. The power of that punch was enough to force a one-star void emperor to retreat. However, the situation just now was the opposite. The one who retreated was Lu Ming. Again. Lu Ming's eyes revealed a desire to fight as he stepped forward. Chaotic light spread out from his body and covered his entire body. Swoosh! Lu Ming used the chaos ring and pointed out. A huge chaotic calamity finger pressed toward the other party. At the same time, endless runes spread out from his left hand, and 9 dragons flew out and attacked the other party. The middle-aged man's face was cold as if it would always be the same expression. The saber in his hand slashed out again. The jet-black saber light directly tore apart the chaotic calamity finger and the 9 dragons formed by the law of array. Saber chi swept out and slashed toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming was forced to retreat. Even the law of primal chaos and chaotic light that covered his body were almost torn apart. What terrifying combat strength! This middle-aged man was definitely an astonishing existence among the emperor-to-be. If we can't separate, then we'll merge. The desire to fight in Lu Ming's eyes grew stronger. Instead of retreating, he advanced toward the middle-aged man. His finger continuously pointed out, and streams of finger force shot toward the other party. This was the chaotic calamity finger, but it was indeed the result of the fusion of the law of primal chaos and the law of array. Now, because the 2 sacred hearts had merged into one, Lu Ming's 2 laws had also completely merged, and its power was astonishing. The saber light in the middle-aged man's hand flashed and collided with the chaotic calamity finger. Boom! Boom! Saber light overflowed and energy burst out, constantly bombarding the canyon. With their current combat strength, they could definitely tear the ground apart, but in this canyon, they could only leave shallow marks on the ground and walls. The 2 exchanged a few blows. Surprisingly, Lu Ming could not gain the upper hand even after using the fusion of the 2 laws. He could only fight to a draw with the other party. Kill! Lu Ming roared and unleashed his strength to the extreme. His sacred heart spun rapidly, and his sacred power surged like a river, constantly gushing out. Lu Ming circulated the power of the laws to the extreme as he fought the middle-aged man. Even so, the 2 were still tied. In the blink of an eye, they exchanged dozens of blows, but it was still difficult to determine the victor. Boom! Lu Ming exchanged another blow with the other party and borrowed the force to retreat a few hundred meters. When Lu Ming retreated a distance, the middle-aged man did not chase after him. He just stood there, blocking his way. What powerful strength! Lu Ming was shocked. He guessed that the middle-aged man's combat strength was about the same as an Elysian child's. Even if it was not, it was not too far off. Lu Ming's current cultivation was very close to that of a quasi-emperor. And Lu Ming's spiritual body was stronger than an ordinary Elysian child's. The sacred heart was formed by two sacred hearts, and with the fusion of the two laws, Lu Ming was confident that he could even fight against an Elysian child who had stepped into the quasi-emperor realm. But now, he could only fight to a draw with the other party. Just now, at this moment, Lu Ming suddenly thought of another matter. He raised his hand, and a wave of death qi spread out from his palm. Chapter 2071. Lu Ming raised his hand, and the law of death emanated from his hand. Although it was very weak, only a trace of aura, it was enough to shake the whole world if it were to spread. Lu Ming himself was also shocked. He was dumbfounded and took a long time to react. He seemed to have mastered the law of death. Previously, in the ancient city, Lu Ming was chased by the Blue Demon King and rushed into the magma. His body was burned and turned into ashes. In a way, Lu Ming had really fallen at that time and was facing death. That experience gave Lu Ming a deep understanding of death. Later, when his body was reassembled, he had been busy absorbing energy for the Heavenly Emperor's body and did not have time to carefully sense it. Just now, when he fought with the middle-aged man with all his strength and circulated his strength to the extreme, his moves actually contained a trace of the law of death. This was an incredible thing. Below the martial emperor realm, one could only comprehend one law. This was the truth. However, because Lu Ming cultivated the twin life restriction and merged his main body and second body, he cultivated two sacred hearts and mastered two laws. Then, when he was on the verge of death in the magma, the two sacred hearts merged, causing the two laws to fuse together. Below the martial emperor realm, one could control two laws and fuse them together. This was already an incredible thing, and countless people would be shocked if they heard it. However, compared to now, it was just a small matter. The law of death was also one of the 10 supreme laws. Moreover, no two of the 10 supreme laws could coexist. This was an unchanging truth since ancient times. Even if one cultivated to the martial emperor realm, it was impossible to control two supreme laws. A mountain could not accommodate two tigers. However, now, Lu Ming had not reached the martial emperor realm, but he seemed to have mastered two supreme laws. Although the law of death was still extremely weak, he had indeed mastered it. Two supreme laws coexisting. If this spread, people would be scared to death. Could it be because of my sacred heart? Lu Ming could not help but guess. His sacred heart was too special. It was transformed from the twin life restriction. In history, even if there were people who cultivated the twin life restriction and even cultivated two saint hearts, they would not be able to do so. But no one was like Lu Ming, whose two sacred hearts had merged again. The probability of this happening was simply too small. Therefore, Lu Ming's special sacred heart allowed him to accommodate many nomological laws at the same time, including the 10 strongest nomological laws. Thinking of this, Lu Ming was ecstatic. Did this mean that he would be able to control more ultimate laws in the future? If he were to grasp all of the 10 supreme laws and fuse them together, what would happen? Lu Ming's heart couldn't help but thump in anticipation. Then I'll cultivate here for a while. Lu Ming pondered for a moment before taking out the ancient demon coffin and placing it on the ground. After glancing at Xian Yanqing, Lu Ming sat down cross-legged beside the ancient demon coffin and started to comprehend the law of death. As he deepened his comprehension, a layer of death intent emanated from his body. Although it was extremely faint, it was indeed the law of death. Lu Ming cultivated continuously for several days. His comprehension of the law of death slowly deepened, but it was not even half complete. However, Lu Ming was already very satisfied. He knew that he had really grasped the law of death. The same person had grasped two ultimate laws at the same time. Even Lu Ming himself felt like he was dreaming. The law of death is still too weak now. When the law of death is improved and can even be fused with other laws, how strong will it be? Also, I've already grasped 3 laws. Can I grasp more? Lu Ming's imagination began to run wild. At his current level, he naturally did not need to comprehend other laws like he did when his cultivation was low. He could skip these steps and directly comprehend the laws. Just like martial emperors, when they comprehended new laws, they would start from the laws. In the following days, Lu Ming comprehended the law of death every day, trying to fuse the law of death with the other two laws. Lu Ming's Saint Heart was really amazing. The process of Lu Ming trying to fuse the laws was actually very smooth. Half a month later, Lu Ming's law of death had already been cultivated to 10%. He could also fuse it with the law of chaos and the law of array path. In this way, Lu Ming's battle strength had increased by a few points. However, in this half a month, Xian Yanqing had not woken up. This made Lu Ming a little anxious. What if Xian Yanqing never woke up? Was he still waiting for the ancient demonic coffin in mid-autumn moon? However, it was useless to be anxious. He could only wait. Lu Ming focused his mind and continued to comprehend the law of death. Now, the law of chaos and the law of array path were already very mature. It was very difficult to improve. But the law of death was only at the initial stage. While Lu Ming was in the magma back then, it was equivalent to experiencing death. His comprehension of the law of death was extremely fast. As time passed, his comprehension of the law of death became deeper and deeper. In a blink of an eye, Lu Ming had already been in this canyon for a month. The maturity of the law of death had also reached 20%. Let's go again. Lu Ming put away the ancient demonic coffin and stepped forward. When he arrived at a certain area, that middle-aged burly man appeared again. Without anything to say, Lu Ming directly made his move. The moment he made his move, Lu Ming used his full strength. This time, Lu Ming used 3 kinds of laws together. The law of death was one of the 10 strongest laws after all. Fusing with the law of chaos, the power that erupted was actually terrifyingly strong. It was as if some kind of qualitative change had occurred. This time, Lu Ming completely gained the upper hand. After several dozen moves, Lu Ming defeated the other party's saber light with one move, bombarding the other party's body, defeating the other party. He finally defeated this middle-aged burly man. Lu Ming revealed a smile and continued forward. However, after advancing for a while, Lu Ming had no choice but to stop. Because 2 figures appeared in front of him. 2 middle-aged burly men. Lu Ming fought with the other party and discovered that the 2 middle-aged burly men's combat strength was exactly the same as the previous one. One was already very terrifying. 2 attacking together, Lu Ming used all his strength but still fell into a disadvantage. He was speechless and could only retreat. Looks like I won't be able to break out in a short time. Lu Ming shook his head, then took out the ancient demonic coffin again. Suddenly, Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Just now, he discovered that Xian Yanqing's finger moved. Lu Ming definitely did not see wrongly. Lu Ming was overjoyed. Could it be that Xian Yanqing was about to wake up? Lu Ming stared closely at Xian Yanqing. Sure enough, not long after, Xian Yanqing's finger moved again. Not long after, it moved again. A moment later, Xian Yanqing made an N sound and opened her eyes. After opening her big black eyes, she saw Lu Ming. At first, her eyes were a little blank. Then, endless joy. Lu Ming. Chapter 2072. Xian Yanqing's eyes were wide open as she stared at Lu Ming. At first, she seemed to be in disbelief, but slowly, it turned into pleasant surprise. Lu Ming. Xian Yanqing called out softly, still in disbelief, as if she was dreaming. Shao Qing, it's me. Lu Ming was also overjoyed. Xian Yanqing had finally woken up. From the looks of it, she was fine. It had been several years since they had last parted. It would be a lie to say that he didn't miss her. Lu Ming, it's really you. Xian Yanqing seemed to have finally confirmed that it was really Lu Ming. Her delicate body moved, and she rushed out of the ancient demon coffin, throwing herself into Lu Ming's arms. Lu Ming hugged Xian Yanqing's slender waist and hugged Xian Yanqing tightly in his arms. After a long while, the two of them separated. Shaoqing, why are you here? And why are you in the ancient demon coffin? How is Patriarch Ice Dragon? And who are those black-robed men? Lu Ming asked a series of questions. He was indeed full of questions. Back then, Patriarch Ice Dragon and I escaped the pursuit of the evil spirit sect. Then, Xian Yanqing told him about her experiences over the years. Back then, Xian Yanqing and Patriarch Ice Dragon had escaped the pursuit of the evil spirit sect and accidentally escaped to an ancient ruin. That ancient ruin was very mysterious. While exploring that ancient ruin, Xian Yanqing had unintentionally stepped onto an ancient teleportation array and was directly teleported to the Demon's Sea of the Land of 10,000 Devils. In the Demon's Sea, she met those black-robed men. Xian Yanqing told him that the Demon's Sea should have fallen from the Heaven Realm during the ancient war. Among them, some people did not die and had been passed down. They were those black-robed men. All these years, she had been cultivating in the Demon's Sea. She wanted to leave, but those black-robed men did not let her. So, Patriarch Ice Dragon is still in that ancient ruin? Lu Ming said. It's possible. However, that ancient ruin is very mysterious. There might be other teleportation formations. Patriarch Ice Dragon might have been teleported to another place. Xian Yanqing said. How did those black-robed men steal the ancient demon coffin and place you inside? This was Lu Ming's biggest question. I don't know either. Those people are very mysterious. Xian Yanqing said, seemingly unwilling to talk about it. He changed the topic and asked Lu Ming, why are you here? How did you survive all these years? It's like this. Immediately, Lu Ming briefly recounted his experiences over the years. Lu Ming, so you've been through so much. Xian Yanqing gently leaned on Lu Ming. However, I've finally found you. No matter how much I've gone through, it's all worth it. Lu Ming put his arm around Xian Yanqing's shoulder. However, that girl of yours is dead set on you. At this time, Xian Yanqing suddenly looked at Lu Ming, blinking his big eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. Lu Ming touched his nose and said, are you jealous? Yes. Xian Yanqing was very straightforward. He nodded directly, but then said, however, she is devoted to you and can even die for you. If you let her down, I won't let you off. Lu Ming was a little confused. What did Xian Yanqing mean? He was jealous, but he also told Lu Ming not to let down Autumn Moon. Lu Ming really couldn't figure out what he was thinking. A heartless person is not worth entrusting your life to. You won't understand even if I tell you. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and put your lass into the ancient demon coffin. Xian Yanqing said. Okay. Lu Ming quickly took out the great pill amplification furnace and put Autumn Moon into the ancient demon coffin. There was a mysterious energy in the ancient demon coffin that immediately covered Autumn Moon's body. Autumn Moon's face seemed to be a little redder. Lu Ming was finally relieved. Then, Lu Ming put the ancient demon coffin into the mountain river diagram. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing hadn't seen each other for many years and had a lot to talk about. The two of them started chatting again. As they were chatting, Xian Yanqing suddenly frowned, and a trace of pain flashed in his eyes. He said softly, of course. Lu Ming noticed all these. Shaoqing, what's wrong? Lu Ming quickly asked. No, nothing. Xian Yanqing smiled and shook his head. Lu Ming was suspicious. Xian Yanqing clearly showed a trace of pain just now. Is Shaoqing injured? Lu Ming was puzzled. He held Xian Yanqing's little hand and carefully felt Xian Yanqing's body. He was not injured at all. Shaoqing, do you know what's going on with this canyon? Do we really have to go all the way to the end before we can get out? Lu Ming asked. That's right. Xian Yanqing nodded and said, in the 9 heavens of the heaven realm, there is a heaven called the ancient demon heaven domain. Almost everyone there is a demon cultivator. When the ancient demon race invaded, the sky fell and the earth cracked. Many demon cities and demon mountains fell from the heaven realm and formed the demon sea. And this mountain fell from the heaven realm. This mountain should belong to an extremely powerful force in the heaven realm. And this canyon is a test for the disciples of that force. Only the strongest below the martial emperor can pass through here. If you can't pass, you will be trapped here for the rest of your life or even die of old age. Such a strict test. Lu Ming was also secretly shocked. Once one entered this canyon, there was no other way out except to use extremely strong combat strength. This was forcing one to constantly improve and continuously squeeze out one's potential. The way demon cultivators did things was indeed unusual. It was very strange. How strong is the strongest below the martial emperor? Lu Ming muttered. I speculate that the strongest below the martial emperor is just a saying. Or rather, it's just a limit. There is always a higher mountain. Who knows what the strongest combat strength is? It's just a limit. Once you reach that limit, you can get out. Xian Yanqing explained. She had been in the demon sea for a few years and learned a lot from those black-robed men. It seems that I can only break out by continuously increasing my strength. Lu Ming said. With his current strength, it was obvious that he could not break out. Next, the two chatted for a long time. After a long time, Lu Ming went to the side, sat down cross-legged, and began to cultivate. A few days later, Lu Ming went to break through again. However, he was still not a match for the 2 middle-aged men and was forced back. After returning, Lu Ming continued to cultivate. A few days later, he went to break through again. This way, Lu Ming improved very quickly. However, there was something that worried Lu Ming. He had seen Xian Yanqing frowning a few times, and pain flashed in her eyes. However, when he asked Xian Yanqing said that she was fine. However, Lu Ming could clearly sense the worry in Xian Yanqing's eyes. Little Qing, is there anything that the two of us can't talk about? If there is anything, you must tell me. Lu Ming walked to Xian Yanqing's side and gently hugged her. Xian Yanqing suddenly hugged Lu Ming's neck and pressed her red lips against Lu Ming's. Chapter 2073. Lu Ming was stunned. Why? You don't want to? Xian Yanqing's voice rang in his ears again. Of course I do. Lu Ming's lips pressed on Xian Yanqing's lips again. At the same time, his hands wandered all over Xian Yanqing's body. Finally, he reached into his clothes and touched Xian Yanqing's smooth jade-like skin. Xian Yanqing's body trembled slightly as if he had been electrocuted. His mouth let out a soft gasp. Immediately, Xian Yanqing responded even more passionately. His small hands wandered all over Lu Ming's body. Slowly, Xian Yanqing's clothes were taken off, revealing a delicate body that was fairer than jade. It could be said to be the most outstanding work of art in the world. Lu Ming was completely lost in this perfect work of art. The two bodies were entangled together. Soon, panting sounds could be heard in the valley. At this moment, they were completely oblivious. They only had eyes for each other. This battle lasted for a full hour before it finally stopped. Even though the two of them had high cultivation, they were sweating profusely. Xian Yanqing lay in Lu Ming's arms and hugged Lu Ming tightly. He didn't say anything and didn't want to let go. After a long time, a wooden figure suddenly appeared in Xian Yanqing's hand. It was completely black and looked like a doll. Lu Ming, this is a death substitute magic puppet. If you encounter a fatal danger, you can die in its place once. Take it. Xian Yanqing handed the doll to Lu Ming. Death substitute magic puppet? Can it die in its place? Lu Ming was shocked. There was actually such a treasure in the world. Wasn't it equivalent to having an extra life? If this news were to spread, it would probably cause a frenzy because it was too precious. This depends on the cultivation. It's useless to use this death substitute magic puppet if one is above the martial emperor realm. It's only useful if one is below the martial emperor realm. Xian Yinqing said. Little Qing, keep it for yourself. Lu Ming said. I still have some. You can keep them. Xian Yinqing stared at Lu Ming with wide eyes. That's good. Since Xian Yinqing still had some, Lu Ming did not refuse and put away the death substitution golem. Then, Lu Ming's hands started to wander up and down Xian Yinqing's smooth body. Xian Yinqing's face flushed red, her big eyes became watery, and her rosy lips opened slightly. It was really tempting. Shao Qing, you are so beautiful. Lu Ming said gently. Have you said that to anyone else? Of course not. Yes. Shao Qing, let's continue. Haven't you been here before? How is having a child once enough? A gentle voice came out, and the canyon was full of spring. The two of them did not know how many rounds they had fought. In the end, even with Lu Ming's cultivation level, he felt so exhausted that he collapsed. He lay down and fell into a deep sleep. Xian Yinqing was the same. She lay beside Lu Ming and fell asleep. After an unknown period of time, Lu Ming suddenly woke up from his sleep. Because he felt a cold murderous intent enveloping him. This was an instinctive vigilance. He ran his saint force and retreated far away. He took out a piece of clothing from his storage ring and put it on. Then, he looked ahead. In front of him, Xian Yinqing was wearing a long black dress. Her beauty was unparalleled. But at this moment, her eyes were extremely cold and filled with cold murderous intent. She stared coldly at Lu Ming. Lu Ming was shocked. He was unfamiliar with Xian Yinqing's eyes. Xian Yinqing had never looked at him with such eyes. Shao Qing, what's wrong with you? Lu Ming could not help but ask as he stepped forward. Kill. A cold voice came out of Xian Yinqing's mouth. Her body emitted a dark demonic light and turned into a dark demonic sword. Her figure was like a flickering shadow as she rushed towards Lu Ming at an astonishing speed. Whoosh! The dark sword light slashed towards Lu Ming, aiming straight for Lu Ming's vital point. Shao Qing, what are you doing? Lu Ming shouted. At the same time, he ran his saint force and controlled the law of chaos to form a defensive wall in front of him. But to Lu Ming's shock, Xian Yinqing's demonic sword slashed down and directly tore apart Lu Ming's defensive wall. The defensive wall formed by the law of chaos seemed very fragile under Xian Yinqing's sword light. This shocked Lu Ming. The sword light in Xian Yinqing's hand did not stop as it slashed towards Lu Ming's glabella. She was not joking. She really wanted to kill Lu Ming. Xian Yinqing, compared to yesterday's passionate appearance, was like heaven and earth. Yesterday, Xian Yinqing was as passionate as fire and tender as water. She wanted to give birth to Lu Ming's child. Today, she drew her sword and wanted to kill Lu Ming. Her murderous intent was as cold as a blade. Yinqing, stop. Tell me what you want. Lu Ming shouted. At the same time, the light of chaos burst out. With a wave of his hand, a phantom of the prison-suppressing monument appeared and blocked in front of him. This phantom of the prison-suppressing monument was covered in the law of chaos and the light of chaos. Its defensive power was astonishing. But when Xian Yinqing's sword light slashed down, the light of chaos shook violently and a hole was torn open. Lu Ming was shocked and quickly retreated. This power, Lu Ming's gaze turned solemn. Xian Yinqing's power did not have the slightest power of the law. She only had extremely condensed demonic power. Her attack power was extremely strong. This power was very similar to the power cultivated by the ancient fiend's primordial demon Dao. Lu Ming had fought with the ancient fiend before, so he could clearly feel it. But Xian Yanqing's power was purer, more condensed, and more powerful than the ancient fiend's power. Lowly ant, how dare you insult me? Die! Xian Yanqing shouted. Her murderous intent was extremely dense. Demonic light filled the air and the sword light was resplendent. She continued to attack Lu Ming. Lu Ming was shocked. His pupils constricted as he shouted, "Who are you? You are not Shao Qing." Xian Yanqing would never speak to him in such a tone, nor would she call him a lowly ant. But the aura of the person in front of him was clearly Xian Yanqing. What was going on? Could it be that Xian Yanqing's body had been possessed? I am Xian Yanqing. Xian Yanqing is me. Xian Yanqing said coldly. Her sword light did not stop as she attacked Lu Ming. Lu Ming unleashed his full strength. He used the law of primal chaos, the law of array Dao, and even the law of death to fight with Xian Yanqing. At the same time, all sorts of thoughts flashed through his mind. No, from the looks of it, it doesn't seem like she has been possessed. What's going on? If one's body was possessed, their soul would be destroyed and they would not have self-awareness. But Xian Yanqing had self-awareness, so it was impossible that she had been possessed. Could it be related to the primordial demon coffin? But I have never heard of such a situation when using the primordial demon coffin. Could it be related to the power in Shao Qing's body? Lu Ming thought of the power in Xian Yanqing's body. In the past, he had always felt that there was a terrifying power dormant in Xian Yanqing's body. In the past, Lu Ming thought that it was because of Xian Yanqing's great potential. But now that he thought about it, the situation was not right. There was another person in the same situation, Xian Yanjuan. Lu Ming also felt a terrifying power dormant in Xian Yanjuan's body. In addition, Lu Ming also thought that the current Xian Yanjuan was very different from the Xian Yanjuan of the Divine Wilderness continent. Chapter 2074. Lu Ming thought about it carefully and realized that Xian Yanjuan's personality had indeed changed a lot. Was all of this similar to Xian Yanqing's current situation? At the same time, he also thought that during this period, he often saw Xian Yanqing's painful expression. Was all of this related? Lu Ming's mind flashed through many thoughts. His hands didn't stop. He continuously pointed with 2 fingers and fought with Xian Yanqing. That was because Xian Yanqing was too powerful. That kind of devilish energy could break through all obstructions. Lu Ming's combination of several laws seemed to be unable to resist and was about to be torn apart. Shao Qing's cultivation seems to be at the peak of the absolute saint realm, the same as mine. But what kind of power is this? Is it also the power cultivated by the ancient demonic path? A thought flashed through Lu Ming's mind and he pointed with his finger. This finger contained the law of chaos, the law of array, and the law of death. The huge finger pointed at Xian Yanqing's sword light. Qi! Xian Yanqing's sword light slashed down, and even small cracks appeared in the space. It was too shocking. It slashed the huge finger and broke it open. Shao Qing, wake up! Lu Ming shouted. He didn't believe that Xian Yanqing would really kill him. Lowly ant, you've tainted my body. You deserve to die. Xian Yanqing spoke again. Her face was extremely cold. The demonic light on her body became stronger. There seemed to be endless power surging out of her body. Her sword light was cold and continued to attack Lu Ming. Her sword light was even stronger than before. The sword light exploded, illuminating the canyon. Although Lu Ming used all his strength, he was still no match. The combination of 3 laws couldn't block Xian Yanqing's sword light. He was torn apart by the sword light. Puff! Lu Ming's body was slashed by the sword light. A deep sword wound appeared on his body. It was so deep that his bones could be seen. Blood flowed and dyed his clothes red. The moment Lu Ming was injured, Xian Yanqing's eyes flickered. She paused for a moment and stopped. Kill him. He defiled me. He must be killed. Xian Yanqing shouted, as if she was talking to herself. Her gaze once again turned cold as she raised her sword and charged towards Lu Ming. Whoosh! The sword light was like a rainbow, cutting through the sky. But this time, Lu Ming did not move, nor did he resist. He allowed the sword light to stab him. Seeing that the sword light was about to pierce Lu Ming's heart, Xian Yanqing's eyes revealed a look of struggle. No! She shouted and moved her wrist. The sword light deviated slightly and pierced into Lu Ming's chest. However, it had already deviated from the position of his heart. Shao Qing, if you want to kill him, I'll let you kill him. If you're pregnant with our child, take good care of him in the future. Lu Ming smiled and looked at Xian Yanqing gently. Kill him. No. Xian Yanqing shouted continuously. It was as if there were two of them talking, but it was clearly the voice of one person. The struggle in Xian Yanqing's eyes intensified. Even her beautiful face was somewhat distorted. Shao Qing, what's wrong with you? Lu Ming shouted. Xian Yanqing's situation was obviously not right. It was as if there were two people in her body. Lu Ming, take care. In the end, Xian Yanqing looked at Lu Ming tenderly and turned to leave. Like a rainbow, she rushed into the depths of the canyon. A few roars came from the canyon, but the next moment, the roars disappeared. Shao Qing! Lu Ming shouted. The sword light that pierced into Lu Ming's body was condensed by Xian Yanqing's demonic energy. At this moment, it had already dissipated. Lu Ming rushed into the depths of the canyon. However, when Lu Ming rushed out for a distance, two middle-aged men appeared and attacked Lu Ming. Lu Ming was blocked and could not rush over. In the end, he was pushed back by the two middle-aged men. What's going on? What's going on? At this moment, he was extremely anxious and had endless questions in his heart. However, he was blocked and could not rush over. He could not find Xian Yanqing and ask about it. It must be related to the energy in Shao Qing's body. What is it? Xian Yanjuan has it too. Also, those black-robed men deliberately stole the ancient demonic coffin and placed Shao Qing in it. Is it related to this? The next time I see Xian Yanjuan, I must get to the bottom of this. Lu Ming clenched his fists. He was really afraid. He was afraid that Xian Yanqing was no longer the Xian Yanqing of the past and had become a different person. Xian Yanqing broke through several checkpoints in a row. The strength she displayed was incomparably shocking. After breaking through several checkpoints, she stopped. Why don't you let me kill him? He has tainted us. Xian Yanqing shouted, her killing intent cold. If you kill him, I'll kill myself. Then, Xian Yanqing muttered to herself. Why are you so stubborn? You are me, and I am you. Let us merge completely and return to the supreme realm. Why are we trapped in this small world? No, you are you, and I am me. I will never merge with you. Never. Xian Yanqing seemed to be talking to herself. Then, her figure moved and rushed out of the canyon. Soon, her figure completely disappeared. Lu Ming sat on a piece of black rock, quietly thinking. He thought a lot, but he still couldn't find an answer. Strength. As long as I am strong enough, I will definitely understand everything and let Shao Qing return to her original state. Lu Ming clenched his fists. Slowly, his heart calmed down. Along the way, Lu Ming had experienced too much. He was very clear that there was no use in being anxious. It was better to calm down and improve his strength. Lu Ming closed his eyes and sat there quietly. 3 days later, Lu Ming opened his eyes. His gaze had become calm. Then, Lu Ming took out the Enlightenment ancient tree and sat quietly under it to comprehend the law of death. Now, the tree of enlightenment was already 10 meters tall, with luxuriant branches and leaves. Rays of mysterious brilliance circled between the branches, endlessly mysterious. In these years, Lu Ming had paid a great price to nurture the Enlightenment ancient tree. As expected, the Enlightenment Ancient Tree had improved greatly. Comprehending the law under the Enlightenment Ancient Tree was twice the result with half the effort. In the blink of an eye, 2 months had passed. Lu Ming's law of death had improved rapidly. At the same time, his fusion with the other 2 laws had become more thorough. His strength was increasing every day. This time, he successfully got past the 2 middle-aged men and continued on his way. But this time, 3 middle-aged men appeared in front of him. The 3 of them joined forces and fought Lu Ming. Lu Ming was blocked again. He could only stop and continue to improve his strength. At this time, Lu Ming's heart stirred. With a wave of his hand, the ancient demonic coffin appeared in the canyon. Inside the ancient demonic coffin, Autumn Moon's body emitted a powerful aura. After a few months, Autumn Moon finally showed some changes. In the past, the people of Vientiane Tower said that as long as one stayed in the ancient demonic coffin for a month, Autumn Moon would wake up. But in reality, 3 months had passed. Huff huff, at this time, Autumn Moon's body exploded with a powerful suction force. The energy of heaven and earth quickly rushed towards Autumn Moon. Breaking through? Chapter 2075. Endless origin chi gathered towards Autumn Moon and Autumn Moon's aura became stronger and stronger. Peak Absolute Saint, Complete Absolute Saint, in a short period of time, Autumn Moon's aura soared. Gradually, Autumn Moon's body floated out of the ancient demonic coffin and floated in midair. Buzz! Suddenly, a layer of light spread out from Autumn Moon's body. It was the light of laws. Lu Ming was shocked. Autumn Moon had been in a coma and her soul was incomplete. He didn't expect her to be able to cultivate the light of laws. This was really unbelievable. But it didn't stop there. Autumn Moon's aura was still rising. Her body was filled with the aura of the laws of yin and yang. Suddenly, the laws of yin and yang gathered into a long river and flowed around Autumn Moon's body. Autumn Moon's aura soared again. The laws of laws have formed a river, Boundary Emperor. Lu Ming was dumbfounded. Autumn Moon had broken through to the Boundary Emperor realm after being in a coma for a while. Indeed, during this period of time, Lu Ming had condensed a large amount of sacred medicine into Autumn Moon's body. However, the laws couldn't be improved with sacred medicine. They needed to be comprehended. Autumn Moon was in a coma, how could she comprehend the laws? Lu Ming was very confused. After her aura reached the Boundary Emperor realm, it finally calmed down. At this moment, Autumn Moon also opened her eyes. 2 bright lights burst out from Autumn Moon's eyes. The next moment, they were retracted. Then, Autumn Moon's aura was also retracted. Young Master. When Autumn Moon saw Lu Ming, she cheered and jumped into Lu Ming's arms. Autumn Moon, you're finally awake. Lu Ming touched Autumn Moon's head and smiled. His mood finally improved a little. Yes, young master, are you okay? Those people wanted to kill you. Autumn Moon looked around nervously. Her memory was still stuck in the Lotus world. It's fine. It's been a long time. Lu Ming smiled. How long has it been? Autumn Moon blinked her big eyes suspiciously. Immediately, Lu Ming briefly recounted what had happened during this period of time. Of course, he skipped over some things, such as Xianyanqing. So much time has passed. Have I been unconscious all this time? Strange, I've always felt like I was in a strange state, enveloped by the laws of yin and yang. I've always been in a daze, but suddenly, a warm energy enveloped me from behind. Autumn Moon started talking. Could it be the enlightenment of the soul? Lu Ming's heart stirred. When it came to epiphany, it was a rare state of cultivation. Lu Ming speculated that after Autumn Moon's soul was injured, she fell into a state of epiphany. This state was extremely rare. She would involuntarily comprehend the Tao and the laws. And her body was tempered by the alchemy fire in the Great Pill Amplification Furnace. In addition, she had refined countless sacred herbs. Therefore, when she woke up, her cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds. Not only did she cultivate the light of the laws, but she also broke through to the quasi-emperor realm. Perhaps, the ancient demonic coffin also played a role. Fortune and misfortune really came hand in hand. It was hard to predict the future. Lu Ming was also happy for Autumn Moon. Autumn Moon, your current cultivation has surpassed young masters. Lu Ming smiled. But Autumn Moon is definitely not young master's opponent. Autumn Moon stuck out her tongue and pulled Lu Ming, talking non-stop. In the following days, the two of them cultivated while breaking through the levels. This place was very mysterious. When Lu Ming and Autumn Moon advanced together, 6 middle-aged men would appear in front of them, causing Lu Ming to retreat in shock. Although Autumn Moon had reached the quasi-emperor realm, her combat strength was not enough to deal with one middle-aged man, let alone 3. It was obviously impossible for the two of them to break through the levels together. Therefore, every time they broke through the levels, Autumn Moon would enter the mountain river diagram. This way, only 3 middle-aged men would appear. As time passed, Lu Ming's comprehension of the death laws became higher and higher. Another month passed. Lu Ming had been in the canyon for 4 months. At this time, Lu Ming's mastery of the death laws had reached 50%. Combined with other laws, Lu Ming could already fight the 3 middle-aged men to a draw. He could even slightly suppress them. Fighting with these middle-aged men allowed Lu Ming to improve, and his speed was also very fast. Here, he could fight to his heart's content without any worries. Every time, Lu Ming would unleash his combat strength to the limit, constantly squeezing out his potential. At this time, Lu Ming would occasionally let Autumn Moon go forward to break through the levels. Lu Ming would do his best to deal with 5 middle-aged men, while Autumn Moon would deal with 1. This way, it was also very helpful for Autumn Moon's improvement. Time passed quickly, and another month passed. The two of them had gained a lot every day. On this day, Lu Ming sat cross-legged under the Enlightenment ancient tree and closed his eyes to cultivate. Suddenly, endless runes spread out around his body. Endless runes began to gather, forming a long river. The laws formed a river. This was the Array Dao Law. After this period of cultivation, Lu Ming's Array Dao Law was the first to break through, stepping into the perfect state, and the laws condensed into a river. At this moment, the power of the Array Dao Law passed through Lu Ming's body and began to refine Lu Ming's physical body. Once the laws formed a river, the corresponding power of the laws would pass through the physical body again, using the power of the laws to refine the physical body, making the physical body stronger. At the same time, the sacred power would also become more condensed and more vigorous. This was also the reason why quasi-emperors were so much stronger than perfected absolute saints. Lu Ming's body shook like beans being fried. It was his muscles shaking and his bones colliding. Autumn Moon sat cross-legged not far away, waiting quietly. A day later, Lu Ming finished cultivating, and the river of laws disappeared without a trace. I can be considered a quasi-emperor now, right? Lu Ming smiled. He couldn't figure out his specific realm now. According to the Chaos Law, he was still a perfected absolute saint, but according to the Array Dao Law, he was already a quasi-emperor. But no matter what, his combat strength had indeed skyrocketed. When the Array Dao Law formed a river, its power increased greatly. At the same time, when the laws formed a river, it refined his physical body and sacred power, both of them increasing by a level. I really wonder how much my physical body and sacred power will improve when the Chaos Law and Death Law form a river later on. Lu Ming was looking forward to it. Every precept that formed a river would bring great improvement to one's physical body and saint power. If all his nomological laws were to form a river, to what extent would his battle prowess rise? Lu Ming was sure that no one at the same level as him would be a match for him. Even the Elysian child could be defeated with a flip of his hand. What if I comprehend a few more laws? Thinking of this, Lu Ming's eyes lit up. If he comprehended a few more laws and formed a river, it would be even more terrifying. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.